Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. This is the first of a two-parter. We're going to have the other video up next week, and we're going to be talking all things Tomb Kings. I am joined by Bryn, and why should you care about Bryn's opinion? Well, he won one of the early big GTs here in the UK. He hit the Twin Sentinels Grand Tournament in Cardiff, and that was back in June. Is that correct?
Yeah, June. It was one of the first kind of big tournaments. It was like a pre-register before Old World came out, so there was loads of kind of hype for it. So yeah, one of the first kind of big tournaments about.
And which army did you win with?
So I won with Tomb Kings, and I took one of the Arcane Journals, the Mortuary Cult. But so we'll be talking about that in the next episode.
Absolutely, yes. The goal for this one is to give you the foundational knowledge. We're going to be going over the basics of the Grand Army, all of the units that you get in the actual basic Tomb Kings book, the magic items there, and then next episode we're going to be looking at the two Arcane Journal factions. And I'm going to be honest, we might spend a little bit more time on one of them than the other, but there is some interesting stuff for both of them. So look forward to that one. Before we do go into it, let's have a quick chat about how we feel Tomb Kings are doing at the moment. So from my perspective, the more I've seen of how games are played, the more I've played into various armies, I feel like there are two armies at the top of the meta right now. It's Exiles, Bretonnian Exiles, and it is Mortuary Cult Tomb Kings. And they're really kind of like a 1A, 1B. You could argue that either is the better army, but they're very close. How do you feel about Tomb Kings?
I would totally agree there. I'd just say Brett's at the moment, as well as Tomb Kings, are definitely up there, especially the Mortuary Cult, because it seems like magic can be a really big factor at the moment, and with their special ability of getting +8 to cast, certain things keep going, and then the things you take wounds from, you can keep healing up, and it's just a constant flow of, I'm going to keep getting everything I want off, and I'm just going to keep you far away, and I'm just going to shoot you off or make you panic away. It's just the key aspects of the game. Tomb Kings don't play with, and they can just really run through with. So yeah, definitely a threat and quite hard to deal with unless you've got the right tools.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the Tomb Kings Exiles matchup, I think outside of maybe a list that's running double bombard, I feel like Tomb Kings have the edge there. There's a lot of tools that are available for the Tomb King player that can just shut down and really neuter the Pegasus Knights specifically with their 2 wounds. Sharpty with great bows and Caskets of Souls between them there.
So yeah, with that, like I say, you Shabty before they even get there. If they don't get their wards, you're winning them on 2s, and they've only got that 4-up save. You get the arm bend, they've got a 6-up save, and it's one of those that you can get rid of a squad with quite with lucky rolls, as you say, and then it's they can hold up a unit of your Shabty with the amount of attacks and the amount of wounds they have. You just need 1 wound to live, and then everyone's back basically.
Yeah, it does get pretty ridiculous. All right, let's get straight into it. Okay, so let's start off with the Tomb Kings army list. This is the first step we're looking at. It's what can you put in your army. Obviously, all of the units are available in the Grand Army. That's generally how it tends to go. The specialist ones come in the specialist detachments, but you've got a little bit of everything here, but you can't necessarily lean or skew into some of the things you might be able to in the other detachments. So character-wise, you're looking at I was going to say a fairly standard, actually a very forgiving list. So you can have 1 or more Tomb Kings. You have to have at least 1. You have to have at least 1 High Priest or Mortuary Priest. 0 to 1 Tomb King or High Priest per 1,000 points. Okay, so it is actually restrictive, but it's just written in a very confusing way.
Yeah, it is a bit confusing.
So basically, at 2,000 points, you have to have at least 1 Tomb King or Tomb Prince, at least 1 High Priest or Mortuary Priest, but you can't have more than 2 of the top level ones, which is probably fair and balanced. And then Royal Heralds and Necrotects. How do you feel about that? Does that feel restrictive, or do you think that sort of fits in everything you want?
Not really restrictive. Like, it comes from more of a lore perspective. Like, you have to have the Hierophant when we get to it, controls your army, and then you have some leads your army. So that's why you have to have 1 of each. I do think it's absolutely fine, the restriction of 1 Tomb King and 1 High Priest, because points-wise, you most of the time can't have more than 1 Tomb King anyway, or more than 1 Tomb King and a High Priest. So I think the restrictions are fine, because obviously in this day and age, you do want magic or protection of some sort, so you do want a priest. And the Tomb King or Tomb Prince, they can be really handy at buffing up certain units, and or themselves being a kind of a monster mash kind of killer.
Yeah, and while it might not necessarily be specifically good in the meta at the moment, you could theoretically go double Tomb King and then still take a Mortuary Priest just to fulfill the requirements there. So
100%.
reasonably flexible. Core, the standard 25%. You've got to take at least one unit of skeleton warriors and or skeleton archers. So that's your sort of tax. Honestly, I think that's fine. It's, Undead are the only army in the game that have infantry that are just good across the board. I think they're cheap. They're resilient. They're a right pain in the backside. So I don't feel too bad about that. Then you've got skeleton skirmishers, tomb swarms, horsemen, horse archers, skeleton chariots, as many as you'd like. And then 0 to 1 unit of tomb guard or sepulchral stalkers may be taken as a core choice. Not locked behind a character. Normally that's when there's, for vampire counts, for example, it's take a white and you can take, Graveguard. But in this case, it's just, just take one of the good units. So that's really nice and forgiving as well.
Yeah, so like, overall, that core, and I people talk about the core tax, I generally don't think there really is, because as you've talked about, the one proper thing we have to take is either skeleton warriors or skeleton archers. But what's great about them is they, depending on what role you're going down to, they can do their job. So like skeleton warriors, they're cheap, they're efficient, they've got 2 lots of saves, an armor and a regen, and if you kill 20 of them, I don't flee, I don't do that, I can just get back up the next turn. They're great at holding up like big up monsters because champion can just revive. Skeleton archers, you can just go for mass shooting with an elemental wizard, and then you're always hitting on 5. So there's big things there. Then I'd say all the others. So the skeleton horse archers, I think one of my favourite core because they are just harassment pieces galore. They're really cheap, and like the likelihood is they're going to make their points up, or someone's going to try and get you, and you can frenzy charge. The thing I do like, as you said, is those tomb guard or sepulchral stalkers. Let's say you don't need to bring something, you just get a choice of one or the other. Usually, I probably wouldn't bring either of them, just because I think skeleton warriors do a better job than the tomb guards, just for points in the with infantry these days. But you could go down that route, and you could make a really tough, killy brick of tomb guard and put loads of points in it. That seems to be a kind of a rough idea of what people are going nowadays with points denial. So you have a big souped up tough brick that just doesn't die, and if you do kill them, I just bring them all back.
Yeah. No, it's solid. You've got basically all of the choices. You've got your standard infantry, you've got your skirmishers, you've got your light cavalry. You technically have heavy cavalry, but really you don't take them. We'll talk about that down the line. You've got monstrous cavalry. You've got, heavy infantry. Technically, it's still regular infantry, but it's like your shock trooper infantry. So you kind of got all of the options you could want in there, which is nice. So then you go into the special. 50% of your points can be spent on Tomb Guard, Shabti, Sepulchral Stalkers, Carrion, and Necropolis Knights. 0 to 3 Tomb Scorpions per 1,000 points. Oh no! What a restriction! Who could possibly think?
6 and 2,000 points. What a shame.
Yeah. 0 to 2 Kemrian War Sphinxes per 1,000 points. Again, why even bother restricting that?
Yeah.
It's basically as many as you want. Into rare, you've got the Colossus and the Necrosphinx. 0 to 2 Screaming Skull Catapults per 1,000 points. Sure. And then 0 to 1 Casket of Souls per 1,000 points. And that's the first actual restriction I think we've seen basically across the entire army list, I would say.
100%, because if I could, in my cult list, I would definitely bring 3.
4.
I think 4 might be too many.
No.
I think 3 is
4.
Would be beautiful.
That's the 40k player in me coming out and just like give me as many as possible. Then there's technically allies, but that's not how Warhammer is played at the moment, so don't worry about that. Also, Royal Herald can be a BSB for 25 points, and something to note is that obviously you're undead, you've got a whole host of special rules that come with that. In this case, you just reroll any test using your leadership, I believe.
Any leadership test, so you basically get veteran in a bubble.
It's pretty good. Pretty good.
Really strong, yeah.
So before we go into the actual rule army and unit rules, we should probably have a quick look at the special rules here. So first of all, you did briefly touch on this. All of your shooting, your archers, arrows of Asaph, they never apply modifiers to hit. So all of your stuff's going to be hitting on 5s, or if it's a Shabti, hitting on 4s, which is just amazing.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's what can really make a certain army list that you go down. That rule alone can win games just on its own. It's brilliant.
Yeah, ballistic skill 2 and 3 does not sound good, but then as someone who's been playing armies with ballistic skill 4 and 5, I'm often rolling 5s and 6s to hit anyway, so I'd quite like that ballistic skill 3 never have to make any penalties. Cleaving Blow, the universal special rule that never was. It is there. It's if you roll a 6 to wound on a model with this, all of your infantry and cavalry take a single wound without armor saves or regeneration. It's basically mini killing blow,
Yeah.
and they really should have just put it in, because I think there's like 6 or so different
I
variations.
know high elves definitely have it. They're the ones I know definitely have it. I think
there's a few. Vampire counts have it as well. Plenty of options. However, moving on. Curse of the Necropolis. If a model with this special rule loses its last wound to an enemy attack, the enemy that made the attack makes a leadership test. If it's failed, it takes D3 strength 2 hits at AP nothing. This is a flavor rule, and I'm okay with those, because you're not, like, realistically, you're not paying any points for this.
No.
This is just on your Tomb Kings, is that right?
So it's Tomb Kings and your priests.
Sure.
The reason why I'm not 100% sure is it because I just never do it because
you're really good and you never misposition your
character. Oh yeah,
character.
it's 100%. Yeah. But it's that, like, it's just such a meaningless thing. It could potentially win you a game, get that one wound through of AP 0, but as you say, it's more of a flavor thing. It's the idea if you've killed the leader and I'm cursing you because all that Egyptian thing, but it's more of a fun, flavorful thing rather than anything meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Dry as dust. This is a really impactful rule when it comes up. Each time this model suffers an unsaved wound from a flaming attack on a D6, 1 to 3, you don't take any additional wounds, but on a 4+, you take an additional wound. So effectively, flaming attacks do 1.5 wounds to models with dry as dust. That sounds terrible, but how many things have dry as dust?
Not a lot, but quite a few of the key things. So your Tomb King has it.
Yeah.
So even if he's on like a big dragon, it can be really hurtful. And because it's not after all the damage, it's after every damage. So stuff like Iron Drakes, if you get, like 4 wounds through to you, you're taking 4 of those and you could lose a dragon.
Yep.
Like I think I lost 4 wounds to a single troll torpedo at just a lucky shot because it's on that big thing. Chariots is the big one.
Yeah.
So they're all dry as dust. They're 3 wounds. So once again, stuff like Iron Drakes, it can just chew through them. Yeah. But it's the thing that's there's not on lots of things. It's on a few key kind of components, but it's not a rule that usually comes up unless you're going kind of a specialized army.
Yeah, that's fair. So we'll skip Indomitable for a second because we should talk about Nikara and Undead. Yes. So models with this special rule on Undead, they can't march unless they have Fly. Do remember that your units with Fly can march. That's something that Undead players seem to miss when they start playing the army. In addition, all Undead models have Fear, Immune to Psychology, Unbreakable, and Unstable. 3 of those rules are incredible. One of those rules is not Fear. Obviously, this basically what Fear does is stops you from having to take Fear tests. But sometimes, because you might be running those big bricks of infantry, you're going to make your opponent roll a test. If they fail it in combat, then -1 to hit you. You do have to outnumber them for this to kick in. Yeah. So you don't see it on the things that normally have it, like dragons. But Undead can do it. Immune to Psychology, just don't take any psychology tests. Nice and easy. Unbreakable, you never have to, take break tests. Unstable. This is where the sort of downside kicks in. Basically, for every point of combat res you lose a combat by, that unit takes a wound. And there's no saves. There's no ward saves. There's nothing. It's just you lose combat by 6. You better have some surplus wounds because you're taking 6 additional wounds on that unit. This then ties back to what we were just skipping over, Indomitable. Some units have Indomitable X, and they reduce the amount of wounds they take from their unstable tests by whatever number is in the bracket. Normally it's 1, sometimes it's 2. Tomb King, the Tomb King model himself is 2, that sort of job. I think the Lich Priest as well is probably 2. Is that correct?
I believe so, but the big thing is that with the BSB, so if you have a Royal Herald who's your BSB, they also, in addition to a bubble of Veteran, which is really strong, it also gives you a bubble of D3 Indomitable. So, like, as you say, Kings have 2, so if you roll that D3 and you get 3, you've saved yourself a whole other wound.
Yeah, so I believe the banner stacks with Indomitable, is that correct?
It doesn't. You have to choose the best one. So it's that thing of, like, there's no point not risking it, because you roll it, you get a 1, you still take your 2. You take whatever's highest.
Okay, lovely, lovely stuff. Well, let's move on to Kapesh. Kapesh is the hand weapon rule for the Tomb Kings, and it's one of the best ones. It's not quite as good as Orcs and Goblins, but it's the second best. It's just hand weapons get AP1 at all times.
I would say it's the third best
Oh.
behind Warriors of Chaos. You get the same.
Oh, and magical attacks. No, that's a very fair point. You've got me there. It still doesn't apply to additional hand weapons, but can you take that on any model?
No.
Cool, doesn't matter.
Nothing I would care about. So no.
Yeah, unlike Dark Elves with their murderous rule, which applies to none of the models that can have it. Grumble, grumble.
The ones that matter about it, just no.
It's fine. Just take more dragons. And then finally, we've got, or maybe not finally, yes, finally, we've got Nikaran Phalanx. Closer order units with this special rule with shields can give ground instead, or can choose not to give ground. Basically, you always give ground when you fail a combat, when you lose a combat. In this case, you just choose not to. So the downside of Undead is your opponent can go in, beat you in a challenge with a big monster, or just win a combat and combat res. You get pushed back, and then they get to go, cool, I'm just going to keep doing this, and then it comes back to my turn, and I get to charge. Not in this case. You're locked in here with me forever, which is a bit terrifying, a bit daunting when you've got, say, a unit of 30 sword and board dudes.
Yeah. So, like, with this, like, I don't use it enough because it's more on your infantry blobs and your tomb guard blob. But when we get to it, it's 10 points on the Skeleton Warriors. And it's one of those that, when it comes up, it can be quite important because obviously we constantly give ground. So we can, if we're positioned near the board edge, that's a way the Tomb Kings can just lose half their army. So you just stay there. It also means that, let's say you have a good line of sight, you can just stay where you are. It's a choice thing. So you might not want to, you might actually want to go back 2 inches, but sometimes you want to just stay there so you can move other things. It's for like the points value. It's something that when you need to use it, you'll be grateful that you've got it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then finally, we should just quickly talk about how wounds are healed. So we'll do this and then we'll go on to the Lich Priest, which is how the wounds are actually regenerated. But first of all, it's any characters in the unit. So any of the valuable things in the unit get healed first when healing is applied to a unit. Then it's models with more than one wound, but, that are missing. So say you've got a model with 3 wounds, it's taken 2, it gets healed up to full. Then it's the unit champion. Then it is the regular rank and file after, the full command group is done. So just as you might expect, they're added to the front rank up until the minimum rank bonus. So that'd be 5 wide for infantry or 3 for heavy, not heavy infantry, monstrous infantry. This is something to keep in mind because I think people probably play this wrong on a Shabti and keep just going wider than they maybe necessarily are allowed to do so. Yeah. But so you go rank bonus wide, and then you go backwards, which means you're more likely to survive future combats, which usually is going to be good for you.
Yeah.
So before we talk about the actual units, because we'll do this and then we'll go on to the Lich Priests themselves, let's talk about Arise, because that is how we heal some wounds. Basically, in the command subphase of your turn, you may attempt to resurrect the fallen, assuming you're not engaged in combat, make a leadership test. Again, if you're in range of your BSB, you get to re-roll that leadership test. If passed, a single friendly unit within 12 inches recovers the number of lost wounds equal to table below. So infantry is level of wizardry plus D3. Cavalry is level of wizardry plus 1. Monstrous infantry, cavalry, and chariots are just the flat level of wizardry, normally going to be 4. And then if it's a heavy chariot, monstrous creature, behemoth, or war machine, it recovers a single wound. Just very quickly, are there any heavy chariots in this army?
There is one.
Yeah?
It's not in this book.
Are you thinking Cetra?
It is Cetra.
I think Cetra's a light cavalry.
So he is a heavy chariot, but for the purposes of the Royal
Host, he is, yes, that's
he's
correct.
allowed to act as a light chariot to join them. He's a heavy chariot. Because if he wasn't, you could just keep him up and alive. So it's the whole point with this kind of Arise. It's obviously rank file, we can get more of them. They're pathetic. Yeah. Obviously, the bigger thing you have to heal them and res them, it would take a bit more power. So that's why you get less wounds.
Basically, you can't have a wall of war sphinxes that never die. That is what I'm hearing here. Turns out you can, but you've got to jump through a couple of hoops to get there and be Mortuary Cult. But we can talk about that next week. So that's Arise. And the leadership, it's important to note, is pretty low. So it's leadership 8. Which means that something like 30% of the time you're failing that test. So it's really quite beneficial to be in range of that battle standard, I'd say. Perfect. All right, so let's go on to characters, and tell you what, while we're here, why not start with the Lich Priest? So Lich Priest is a level 3 caster. Obviously, you're always going to upgrade to the level 4. Just, this is the old world. We like our level 4 casters. You've got some decent laws, but not necessarily all of the laws that I might want. Elementalism, Illusion, and Necromancy, I think all of them have a home. Just in the Grand Army specifically, where are you looking to start off by picking a law?
So in a Grand Army, I would probably, because you can't really focus down if you wanted to go all that Terra Leadership on. Personally, for me, it's that Elementalism. The Plague of Rust can really help, especially all your archers hitting on 5s, wounding on 4s and 5s. They've all got AP2, and you can just constantly get them going. Wind Blast to keep yourself away. 5-up wards on a big brick of units that can't march. We can't march anyway. So you've got a 5-up with them. You can have a 5-up, 5-up, 5-up on a big brick of units. You're most likely, there's a good chance you can win that combat and push them back. So it's really helpful there. Obviously, they both all have their own play. Like Necromancy, you can go down there because there's a lot of Terror monsters. There's the casket that really feeds off that leadership. But I'd say in the Grand Army, because you can't go massively down the neck, like the spamming of Necromancy, I personally would probably go with that Elementalism, just so you get that AP -2 and all your kind of cheap chaff shots, you can get that AP -2. It makes even your spears, like when they're charging you and you get to fight back, AP -2. It just all helps just getting through AP. It's such a good spell.
Yeah, no, I agree. Elementalism, fantastic. I like you say, I probably wouldn't necessarily go too deep into Necromancy for the Grand Army because there are better options if you want to go Necromancy, Mortuary Cult. But I'm going to extol the virtue of Illusion here. I think Illusion's a very hard law to use correctly. But if you're playing a list that isn't hinging around like a big brick of poisoned archers, for example, I think the power of Illusion coming in, just stopping their key pieces getting into your key pieces, and then having the monster Tomb King on Dragon that we're going to talk about in a second, having him be able to pick up points while their dragon's unable to do so, I think that's a really strong way to build as well. Not to say that it's better, but I think it's just sort of like the 1A, 1B approach to building Tomb Kings, whether you go for, like, I want to get more use out of my foot infantry, or I want to stop their big things from approaching me.
So yeah, I'm definitely on that Illusion front. I'd say for my kind of list, I've always ran Illusion Wizards. Obviously with the Cult, you can get a lot more there, but it's Miasmic Mirage and Column of Crystal. For me, Miasmic Mirage is probably my favourite spell, if not, to me, the best spell in the game. To just shut down a monster or a big unit, you just go, I don't care about you this turn. I'm going to try and kill the other stuff.
Yeah,
Okay?
this is a problem for future me.
-2 movement. So I'm just going to make sure that wizard who's got Miasmic Mirage is just following you.
Yeah.
The 15-inch range, so if you're close enough already, there's a good chance it can't get out of where you are unless they have like a teleport spell. Kind of thing. So it is really strong. Obviously, 15 inches, the big stuff, if a good player would be able to keep out your ranges, but that's when you put down a Column of Crystal.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you move away because we've got a great spell, reserve move, and we can just plonk it, run away, and then they need 11 on the Fated Dispel, and you just blocked something big coming at you.
Yeah, absolutely. So a whole host of special rules as well. So something to mention here that we didn't mention for Undead, it's not technically an Undead rule, but it's something that all Undead have, which is regeneration. And the Lich Priest has a 5-up. Across the board, it's typically going to be a 6-up, but you might see a 5-up on the more important stuff. You've got Arise for your resurrecting your models. You've got Curse of the Necropolis. We know how good that one is. The Fluff rule. Indomitable 1, Kapesh, in case you ever find yourself in combat. Law of Nikara, so that's your signature spells, and there's some really tasty signature spells. And then you've also got From Beneath the Sands, which is on the second page here. So Beneath the Sands, command phase, if it's not engaged, you can choose a unit that's in reserve or has ambushes, take a leadership test. If you pass the leadership test, the unit comes in fully within 12 inches of the model that made the test. So this is really nice if you've got it on a dragon for that big footprint. And then it's not within 6 inches of any enemy models. You can't charge, but it comes in, and if you fail the leadership test, they can come in the next turn. Again, this is really nice having a BSB because you get to reroll that test. This is not something that's super important here for the Grand Army, but it is quite nice if you want to do any shenanigans with the Mortuary Cult because they've got a special rule that makes this better.
Yeah. overall, it is a really good rule. So like
Mm,
ambushes, realistically, obviously they come on any borders, etc. Sometimes they can just be completely out of the game.
yeah.
Whereas here you can kind of play a bit like a 40k where you can kind of deep strike a unit. Okay, obviously you've got to keep 6 inches away, but most things move. You're allowed to move afterwards, so you can drop down a Tomb Scorpion, move your 6 up, so you're an inch away, so they have to come into you. So there are big things like that that can really help.
That's a really good point, actually, and it's not something I'd considered. I'd only really looked at it from the gimmicky combo that Mortuary Cult can do, but
Yeah.
you can put sort of a reactive unit in place because undead are. So I'm having a quick look at the units that can ambush, and you've got the Sepulchral Stalkers, you've got the Tomb Scorpions, Tomb Swarms, Skeleton Skirmishers. So I guess if you wanted something to come in from reserve, you could use a unit of Sepulchral Stalkers. Just have a bit of Monstrous Cavalry. I'm not super wowed by their output, though, is the only issue.
No. So how I've used it, and I used it at LGT, was I grabbed a Tomb Scorpion and I dropped it 6 inches away from a big block of Dwarf Warriors, and I just got it so I'm an inch away. So they charged because obviously the initiative we were firing at the same time. And I think he shows these great weapons. So obviously Tomb Scorpion's a great unit. I think I killed about 3 of his front rank, and then
Nice.
I crumbled, I died, but it stopped him charging into my big block of Ushabti. And because of where the angle is, he had to then keep going straight on his overrun. So I was able to then once again put another unit in front of it and just keep making him going forwards. And so he's just
use it as like a redirector more than anything else.
basically, yeah. And it's just one of those that, and also you could drop it in and then they have to take a march test if they want to march.
Yeah.
But there are other ways that you can really affect your opponent's kind of movement and charging with this. And for like 70 points, it's not bad. As you said, Tomb Swarms, you could put a Tomb Swarm unit
Just do the same thing.
do the same thing, but it's so many more wounds that you probably don't get crumble, and then you res them back up, and it just keeps them going.
I really like that, actually. That's something that, because I'm sort of shopping around for what I want to play next. That's something I'm going to have to keep in mind. That is quite a tasty little way to use the unit. All right.
It's like the Phalanx rule. Like, when you use it, it's going to be game changing. But it's something that you're not always going to use every game. There's games I've never used it.
These are the little things that's going to separate like a good player from a great player as well. If you can use these sort of like niche corner case rules and understand when they're best to come up, you're going to win quite a lot of your games. So, finally, the Hierophant. Do you want to quickly run us through on what the Hierophant is and why it matters for an undead army?
Yeah, so the Hierophant, kind of the lore kind of spectrum of it, is the high lich priest that's keeping your army alive. Okay, it's the guy controlling all the magic. So he is your most important thing in the army. If he goes, you lose so much and your army starts to crumble. So your regen rule, as you say, it's across the army, 6 up most cases, but the key thing's 5 ups. So you can get triple saves on big things, is when he dies, it just goes across the army. And then also when he dies, you've got to start doing leadership tests. And for every point you fail, you lose the wounds. So I, unfortunately, LGT, bad placement, a bit of just a relaxed play. I lost my Hierophant, and then when I went to roll my leadership test, I lost my next wizards. And at that point, it completely changed because I lost all my wizards because I failed leadership tests. It can hurt like crazy. Obviously, like your big stuff has usually quite good leadership, and obviously, if you're in range of your general, like your Tomb King, you've got leadership 10, so you're pretty safe on that regard. But it is something that can really hurt, and losing the regen, that's the thing that makes Tomb Kings really strong, is that ability just to stay alive.
Yeah, the tankiness from Tomb Kings comes from their layered defense, the regen, potentially the ward save from elementalism, the ore from the casket, and the -1 to hit. So yeah, losing an aspect of that is very, very problematic. But yeah, so you've got to pick a Hierophant. It's got to be the highest wizard level. Don't let it die. If it dies, things go badly for you. And that's the Lich Priest. So the last aspect of a Lich Priest, which we do really need to talk about, is the spells, because they have their own little lore. And when I say that, I mean there are 3 spells in there, and I want to run probably 2 of them every game. So I think it's Mortuary Cult for me. But if we swap over to this one, you can see here we've got the Lore of Nikara. So if I take the first one, it's Jeff's Incantation of Cursed Blades. Cast on a 7. So you can have this on a level 1, level 2 caster and feel real good about it, and that's probably where you're going to put it, because it's casting a 7, range self, command range, all of your Nikara and Undead reroll hits of 1s, natural 1s. So potentially you've got some Sharpty, rerolling 1s, very nice, or big bricks of skeleton archers, or just anything, even giving your Tomb King on Dragon some rerolls is quite nice to have. This is a really solid spell, but it's never going to be my first pick.
Yeah, it's a really good spell, and as you say, so I play obviously a more shooty army. Just getting those reroll 1s is just so helpful.
Yeah.
Like you're just upping your amount of hits. It's just a generic stat buff, and it's really helpful. And as you said, it's a low to cast, so your low level wizards, if they didn't get a spell you really wanted, you just give them that, and it just kind of buffs your army up immensely.
Yeah, and whenever you can get rerolls in this game, you should definitely take a second look at that rule, because rerolls are not something that you can typically get in the old world. Anyway, you can get that layer of reliability and increased output. It's really nice to have. So solid spell there, but it's not the one that you're going to take first. What's the one that you're going to take first? Do you want to give us
So
a
that
run?
is, if I can say it right, is Khazar's Incantation of the Desert Wind. Okay, this is what's getting an enchantment. It's a self, which is really good. If you accidentally get a wizard into combat, you can still do it. It's got 2 casting values. One's a 6+, one's a 10+. 6+ is basically you choose 1 unit and they get reserve move. On the 10+, everything within command range gets reserve move.
Yeah.
Okay, this is massive. So how I'd be playing it, I get this spell off, I chuck my wizards out, chuck out some big vortexes. So Spirit Leech is 11+. So to dispel, you need 12 if you're not in range. So you chuck them out, you come back, and for them to get rid of these tough spells, they need a 12 on a fated, and it's really hard. And even if they are in range, it's just 8+, but it's that maneuverability. So you can move up, shoot, pull back. You can keep moving backwards. You can run around the sides. It's such an important spell that just keeping things alive. So if let's say it's not going well and you want to keep it close, just reserve move everything away. And as you say, you can just play ring around roses with certain units. It's just really good.
Something that's really important to mention as well is you might look at this and go, okay, so you can move twice. That's the same as marching. It's not. Aside from the obvious, which is you get to still cast your spells and shoot, which is great. You get to make 2 maneuvers. So if you're playing anything that's a behemoth, for example, you get lumbering. Your dragons, you fly 9, you make a lumbering pivot, you fly 9, you make a lumbering pivot. That's a lot of mobility that you've just picked up for free. It's a real cornerstone to build your list around. Obviously, if you get it dispelled, that sucks. But here's the thing: you do it in the command phase, so you cast it. You know if you're going to have it, and it's not an aura that stays on. It's just you cast it at a time when you've already positioned all your models correctly. Then everyone around you gets it. They get to move away from you. Don't have to stay near the caster. Then they can move back at the end of the turn, so they're positioned for next turn. And also, it's command range. If you're, for example, taking a general who is on a dragon as a Lich Priest, that gives you an 18-inch bubble of your entire army moves and reserve moves. So really strong spell. On to the last one, we've got the Incantation of Desiccation. It's a hex, cast on a 10, range 15, target enemy unit gets -1 to strength and toughness, but it can't be layered with another hex. Or it can, but you have to cast those hexes first. This is fine. I'd be more excited about it if it was just in Necromancy and I could roll into it, because I'm unlikely to want to take this unless I guess I have a third caster. This is hard for me to want to pick.
So there's a big down. The bad thing about this is it's into the end of the turn. So you cast on your turn, as soon as your turn's end, it's gone. And it's not one that you can cast into combat. So you were talking about that there's a Necromancy spell that kind of does the same with toughness, movement, weapon skill, and that's until the next your command sub phase. So this just lasts for your turn, and you can't do it with stuff already in combat. So you have to target stuff that you want to charge basically, or you want to shoot this turn. But as I say, the Necromancy spell of basically the same thing is just better.
Yeah, cool. But it's fine because, the other 2 spells are both just fairly incredible. Huge fans of those. All right, so Lich Priest overall, pretty good caster. Not much in terms of downsides for them. On to the Tomb Kings, or the Monarchs, I guess we should say. There's the Tomb King and the Tomb Priest, but realistically, you're probably only going to see the Tomb King. Coming in at a fairly monstrous stat line. The movement's whatever. You're probably going to mount him because infantry is not so much a thing at the moment. Weapon skill 6, that's the big downside. But there is kind of a way around that we'll get to in a second. Strength and Toughness 5 is a really nice stat line for a Lord, puts you on that sort of like Chaos Lord equivalent. 4 attacks is okay. It's not quite the top tier fighty Lord, but then Leadership 10, as you mentioned, being able to give out that Leadership 10 is quite nice for a lot of situations. Options, you've got hand weapon and heavy armor stock. You can take a flail, a great weapon, other things that you wouldn't take. You can take a shield, you can be mounted, which is, I believe, Horse, Chariot, Dragon. I don't think there's... Oh, no, there's a Cambrian War Sphinx as well. But just take the Dragon, I think, is the answer there. And obviously, you've got the standard 100 or 50 points of magic items, depending on which tier. What were you going to say?
I would say a Chariot is pretty good for the Tomb King, because you get him up to about 7 wounds, T5, can't be monster slain and killing blow.
Sure.
And I'd say with the layered saves, you can get to, I think it's a 4 up, 5 up, 5 up. He is tough to kill, and he's a lot cheaper. It's only 35 points for those extra 3 wounds. With move 7, which can go up to move 10. And then obviously reserve move. There's loads of things you can do with that single chariot. And I have been thinking about maybe just running quite a few chariots just on their own.
Isn't a chariot only T4?
But you get to use your Tomb King's toughness.
Oh, okay. I've never had it where the Tomb King's got the higher toughness. In that case, I'm interested in testing out maybe a Tomb Prince on Chariot.
So I'd say they're really good. And then a thing we'll get to with the Heralds, they're great because of an ability that we can chuck them on. So Chariots, the characters are phenomenal because obviously they're a lot more safer.
Sure. Something as well to notice is that they have 1 more wound than you might expect. 4 wounds for a king and 3 for a priest. A prince, sorry, is very solid. You're pretty happy with that.
So as you said, like with the kind of Chaos Lord equivalent there, 4 for the Lord, 3 for the 3 for their like Exalted, and then 2 for their lower one. It's nice to see that they're up there as well, just for tankiness.
Yeah, absolutely. And what that does is it puts you in a position. Well, hold on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yep.
Oh, my headset's made the sound of turning off, and then it just didn't turn off. So I'm gonna plug that one in. I'm gonna have to edit that now. Joy. Okay, so moving on. That stands out too much. I hate it. Let me just change that to a white one. One day I'll get this shit all sorted. Problem is, I'm so busy at the moment. Like, it's like either don't do a video to get my shit together. It's there we go. Okie dokie. So, what was I saying? And then so as well, something to note is that you've got regeneration 5+. Obviously, we've talked about it. Undead have regen, and you have the downside of crumbling, but you're getting that layered save in without having to spend any of your magic points on it, your magic item points. Obviously, in theory, it's built into the cost of the character, but 160 is honestly not that expensive for the stat line, especially given My Will Be Done, which is the other special rule it brings. Do you want to run us through on what My Will Be Done does?
So My Will Be Done is another leadership test. So Tomb Kings have a lot of these kind of leadership tests that they look to kind of use to buff up their army. So they do a leadership test, and until the start of my next turn, I get to choose one of these 3 abilities. And it affects the unit, the mount, anything he's kind of on or with, and obviously himself. So obviously, as I say, with a Tomb King, your leadership 10, you're most likely going to pass that. If you're running a king, you should be running a standard BSB anyway, so you're most likely getting this off. So you can either get Forward to Glory, which is plus D3 movement, which is phenomenal on a unit of chariots, because you go up to range of 19 on the charge, or it might even be 20. I think they're movement 7. But that's the whole idea. Plus 1 weapon skill. So as we talked about, they're only weapon skill 6, but you can get up to weapon skill 7. So when you really need it, that's the one I would probably look to do. It makes sure that those other combat characters are still only hitting your 4s. But as I said, this affects a whole unit. So skeletons don't really hit well, but you can get them to weapon skill 3, so it does help once again in those fights. And another one, which I probably wouldn't use, kind of thing, depending on what's coming at me, is the D3 initiative. The main one there is that D3 movement, just so you can, with the reserve move, you can go miles with quite a lot of your stuff.
Are there other ways to layer increased initiative in this army? Is there like a magic item that can give you increased initiative? There might be something in there.
So
we'll have to look when we get to characters.
Spears, so if you're getting charged, you can go up to like initiative 6. So you might actually get that fight first with certain characters. And as I say, Tomb King's initiative 4, so if you get that 3, you go up to initiative 7. So if you are getting charged, there's a good feeling that you might fight for them if they're taking a great weapon versus other combat characters. So you say it can be quite useful. I just really think that movement is the key one that you'll be using a lot. Make sure you can get charges off, and it really messes with the opponent because you can go, I can go this is my base, but if I pass the leadership test, I could do this, and they'll move out. You think, I was like, cool, I would probably go do that anyway because I want to do something different, but it forces them to once again act differently because you have a potential to do something else.
Yeah, no, very strong, very strong. And you mentioned, putting on the skeletons for the weapon skill specifically. Getting them up to weapon skill 3 is a really big breakpoint in terms of not just getting flattened by enemy models. So that's less of an offensive buff a lot of the time and more defensive, but really nice to have. So really solid, obviously can go on a dragon as well. Moving on to the Royal Herald, and that is specifically the model that can have the BSB, which is, in this case, you compared them to the Chaos Lords and their triple tier, and it's basically like that, but it's just their tier is a separate unit with slightly less rules. You don't get the My Will Be Done. So you've got a fairly standard, hero level character, 2 wounds, 3 attacks, strength and toughness 4, weapon skill 4, which is pretty whatever. A range of options, shield, mounted, magic item, 75 points, which is an interesting one because it's the lower level character, but it's got a higher equivalent.
So there's a few different builds you can do with that 75 points, and some can be quite funny, some can actually be really quite strong. Certain items you can get. It's a good amount, and that's what I wish was like on the Prince rather than the Herald, but we take what we can get.
It has, as previously mentioned, if you give it a BSB, the reroll aura of any leadership tests in your command range, which is going to be 12 inches, and also you've got a D3 Indomitable 12-inch bubble as well, which is really nice just for little combats there. And Sworn Protector. Should a Monarch of Nikara model suffer a hit within 3, you may choose to transfer transfer that hit and all of its effects. Is not on a 2+ like a normal Lookout Sir, and you don't have to be in the same unit. You can just be like, oh, I failed my Lookout Sir. I really hope my character doesn't get hit. You know what? I'm just going to flatten my BSB. That's fine. That'll take the cannonball. I can live with that.
So the big thing from this is if you're running that Tomb King on a dragon and they've got that one monster slaying kind of guy you're afraid of.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, you have to do it before they roll that 6 to wound. But let's say they get 3 through. Let's say versus Gorgon kind of thing. If your guy's near it, just take all 3 on it. If you put them on a chariot, you're pretty safe because you can't insta-kill you. And then obviously, because it's a light chariot, you raise it up to full wounds, so you can just keep them alive. And what's great about this is you can technically do it from a challenge because it's just you take the hit. So
if you really want to win combat on combat res, you can just go, cool, all of the hits go onto my foot BSB that is not in combat, I guess. How does that work? I think it still works for combat res, right?
I would think it still would work for combat res, but the whole idea is, you're trying to kill my king, good luck with that, because you're just gonna kill my BSB. I say he should be on a chariot, and then he's got 5 wounds. If he's left with 1, a single leadership test from your wizard brings it back up to 5 wounds. So it's why the chariot is such a lovely piece because the amount of wounds you can bring back.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out. I'd written off the chariot, so I'm learning new things as well. We've already talked about Lich Priests. Great. The level 4 is great. The level 2 also exists. Level 2 casters are not something you necessarily see all that much at the moment, but that might be something that you look at in Mortuary Cult because you can make them the BSB there. But again, we'll get into that next week more than anything else. So I think finally there is one more character, which is the Necrotect. And I saw someone on Facebook literally earlier today. I saw someone say, is the Necrotect the best character in the game? Which is it's a high bar. And I think they're playing a different game to us. They're playing one where infantry are the be-all and end-all. But it is pretty good. I do really like it, jokes aside. 55 points for a regular 2-wound, 2-attack character. It has a whip. So, if you're going to run it, maybe just load up your front rank with characters so you can't have it. You're 6 wide, you've got 3 characters in the front already. I'm going to put my Necrotect in the second rank. It's safe from being absolutely ruined. Eternal... Sorry?
I don't think that works because how
I
that works is if you can't fit them in the front rank, they
Yeah.
go to the back rank.
They go to the second rank, I believe, don't they?
I'm pretty sure it's the back rank. You can't.
So this is not something that, mate, you should be doing
Yeah.
competitively anyway. So maybe we'll look this up, and I definitely will not bother to edit it in after the fact. But let us know down in the comments, because the first person to get it right and cite the page number, I'll pin the comment. Someone can do our dirty work for us. But anyway, what does it actually bring? Well, it brings Eternal Taskmaster, command subphase, drive a unit they've joined to greater efforts by making a leadership test using their own leadership. And this is important. All of these leadership tests are the model's own leadership. If they pass, the unit gets extra attacks +1 and hatred all enemies. It is only leadership 7, but if you're in BSB range, you're looking at something like a 75 to 80% pass rate on that. So it's still pretty okay.
So this is phenomenal, but the issue is, as soon as that Necrotect dies, you lose the ability. And technically, if he isn't in that fighting rank and goes to the back, you don't get his ability, so you lose it.
Yeah.
And as I say, we are quite a low leadership army, so if anything charges us, or if anyone's smart, they'll just put as many attacks into this Necrotect that has 2 wounds, T4 with a light armor and a 6-up regen, and it just loses it. It would be great if you can get us on a chariot, but you can't. It's a 55-point sink for a leadership 7 ability that if anyone's smart, they'll just get rid of that straight away.
No, you could put like a ward save on it. That seems like a good use of the 1 ward save available to you as a Tomb Kings player.
We have 2, but
oh, my apologies. There we go. You can definitely use
there
that.
We go.
Yeah. I like it on paper, but I haven't played it. I think it's one of those where in practice it doesn't end up doing what you want it to do, but it looks
played
cool
it
on paper.
once with a block of Tomb Guards because I was like, I want to get them to work, and with this block of Tomb Guard, I got them in once, and it's all right. It's just not worth the points. Like, I know it's only 55, but you're better off getting 5 more Tomb Guard.
Maybe we'll see some changes to the game in the next few months that make infantry better, and at that point, this unit becomes significantly scarier. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. But that's all the characters there. So we should probably have a look at the magic items. Obviously, there are all of the core magic items you can take. They're fantastic. You know which ones are good. Lore Familiar is going to go on a Lich Priest. Talisman of Protection is going to go on your Dragon. Are there any others?
Those are the 2 mainly. A big one for me, and it's probably in every army list that I try and play with in different armies. It's just the Biting Blade, 15 points.
True.
Strength 5 -2 on your thing. And as you say, your Tomb King, you really just want to be really survivable. So getting AP -2 with Armor Vein can be just really helpful. So that's one, and it's only 15 points. And there's
it's a flail that you get to use your shield with, but you lose the turn 1 strength, so that's not bad. I also like the consumables. Power Scrolls, Dispel Scrolls are very good. More people should be using them, especially if you're playing Illusion. Those are really key. And then the Healing Potion. I know people really like Healing Potions on Dragons. It's kind of less important in this army, but it does let you be a bit risky with a Dragon. You can drop quite low and then be like, oh, I'm going to chug a Healing Potion and I'm going to get healed up by a Rise. So you can do some really unreasonable combinations there. So into the magic weapons, and this is normally the stinkers. It's rare that there's anything super of note in here, but honestly, I'm pretty wowed by the magic items, the magic weapons. So do you want to start off with the top one and we'll alternate off?
This is personally my favourite, just because I love it, but it's not very good in my opinion. The Destroyer of Eternity. So it's strength +2. So if you get it on a good character, strength 7, really good. AP -2, nice to have. Killing Blow, good to have, just nice to have. Magic attacks, requires 2 hand, is always a bit annoying. And strike last. That's the thing that really hurts at strike last. But, so this is where I really like the Herald with 75 points. So, so rather than attacking normally, the wielder of the Destroyer of Eternities may choose to make a special scything attack. If they do, the enemy unit suffers D6 automatic hits with this profile. So obviously, we're weapon skill 6. The 2 arrows is weapon skill 4. You just go, no, I'm not going to try and fight you with my 2 attacks. I'm just going to roll D6 automatic hits.
That's quite spicy. So normally these scything attacks are you make 1 hit for each model in base to base. So you don't even have that. You can just stick this model on a corner where you're less likely to get, damaged back.
And you have
You
your
don't
one attack.
necessarily. Yeah, your opponent might not even want to risk challenging unless it's something like a dragon, because if they whiff, you're just like, cool, let me just ruin your day with my my absolute beat stick. That's pretty cute. It is very expensive, as you
It's
do say.
very expensive what it does, but there, as I say, it's what I've played it a couple of times with the Royal Herald just because I'm at 75 points. He's got
Yeah.
75 points. And versus Ogres, I remember quite early on, I rolled a 6 and we're like, wow. And I rolled like 4 6s for the killing blow, and we were like, oh. And we were both just stunned, like, you've just lost 4 and you've lost your fighting rank. And we were like, that wasn't what we expected. Obviously, it's very swingy.
Sure.
Like, you could roll a 1 and your automatic hits, but as I say, on the Royal Herald, you're already only getting 2 attacks. You're most likely dropping 1 anyway. So it's not a net negative. It's probably only ever a positive.
So here's how you look at it. For 75 points, you can give a dragon stomp to your BSB that also has killing blow. That's basically what it is. It's strength 6, it's AP 2. It is strikes last, same as a stomp. You just have to have a 2 wound model survive until that point, which is we'll see.
So there are ways around it. So you can get it to initiative 7 that strike last. So obviously, if you're on a unit with a Tomb King, you do the initiative for plus D3. And if you charge, you can get up to 3. So you can go up to initiative 7 with it, even with the strike last. So you can fight early on, but it's one of those. It's more for a fun narrative game. Go for it.
I might test that at some point. All right, moving on quickly, because this one's not super interesting. 50 points plus D3 attacks for the Crook and Flail of Radiance, which is on Monarchs only, which I think kills it. You might be more tempted to take this on something a bit lower level that has less attacks. But Strength user, AP -1, plus D3 attacks, requires 2 hands, strikes first, and magical attacks as well. It's in line with the other extra attacks magic item that you get in the rulebook, and nobody takes that. So it's whatever.
It's a fun little piece. Obviously, strike first, but the no extra strength. So I'd say this is probably going on a Tomb Prince rather than your Tomb King. Strength 4, AP -1. That's the big kicker. Obviously,
I think we can just move on from that one, honestly. But I do like this next one though. What are we thinking? Flail of Skulls.
Flail of Skulls is great. So it's Flail of Skulls. It's 35 points, and it can be on anything. It's strength +3, which is really good. So you can get your Tomb King up to strength 8, or your Tomb Prince up to that T7. So he's wounding dragons on 2s and 3s. This is the bit, once again, that really hurts it. It's the -1 AP.
Yeah.
It's multi-wounds 2, which is phenomenal. Requires 2 hands, just like a flail.
Sure.
And as I say, it's like any other flail. The strength only works in the first round of combat. It can work really well, but it's that AP -1. So if you are going to run it, make sure, I would say, get that Illusion Wizard, just so you can get the -2. So it comes a -3, strength 7 or 8, multi-wounds 2.
Elementalism was for Plague of Rust, yeah. So this is one of the best weapons in the game for killing steam tanks. That's where you got to think about it.
Yeah.
Basically, in 5 or 6 months' time, when we're all quaking in our boots at the Gunnery School of Nuln Arcane Journal, running 3 steam tanks, this is going to be your answer. If your friend runs only steam tanks, you're going to be having a great time, absolutely kicking his teeth in. Great weapon there. Speaking of kicking teeth, Serpent Staff, 20 points. Strength +2, AP -2, poison attacks, requires 2 hands. Lich Priest only, that's weird. Why would I want to do that? Illusion, baby! Again, this is probably Mortuary Cult, but you're taking Illusion Caster. You're going to be buffing your cast roll, because Mortuary Cult, you just get the spell off. You get 2d6 auto hits at strength 6, AP 2. Poison hits on those extra couple of attacks that you got yourself. This is objectively good. It's very hard to get a great weapon on a wizard, and sometimes you just want a great weapon on a wizard, and those sometimes are when you can take illusion magic.
So it's only strength 5, unfortunately. The Lich cards are a bit weedy. So it does knock it down, but it is for, if you want to go for that Tomb Lich Priest on a dragon, and you want to make an ability combat, this is a great one, because you can then get the Law Familiar, you can get Talisman of Protection. There is an issue I have found with any magical weapon that has poison attacks, because the rule states that poison attacks obviously go up from 6, unless you are using a magic weapon where it has no effects. So it's a weird one. So I'm like, you can't use it on your magic weapon. You can't use it on your magic weapon. And this has it.
That's funny.
It's a weird one. I probably rule
take it to your TO. They're going to say, yes, the poison works. But that's a very fair point. Rules as written, I guess it technically doesn't work. Hopefully we have that FAQ'd sooner rather than later. If you're going to an event, talk to your TO. If you're playing with friends, talk to your friends. If your friend's a dickhead, don't play him again. Into the magic armor. We've got the Armor of Ages. This is pretty good. It got FAQ'd, so it's not as good. And you know what? It's still real good. 50 points. Light armor. If an enemy model rolls a successful to wound against you, re-roll that wound. Oh, but it's only a light armor. I'll only have a 6 or a 5 up save. Nope, full plate on my dragon, baby. Oh, I'm T6. You're re-rolling all those wounds. You've gone into something with strength 3 or 4. They're only wounding on 6s. That's pretty backbreaking. Pretty terrible. 1 in 36 chance to wound with that strength 4 Chaos Warrior, for example. Doesn't feel good.
It's probably one of the best items in the game, behind obviously the Falcon Horn. This is obviously going your Tomb King on Dragon. If you're taking one, it goes on it 100%. Yes, the light armor is a bit bad. You can only get sort of 5 up with it on the Dragon because you can't use the Dragon's armor. But that's how I'd run it. That with a Talisman of Protection and the Binding Blade, you get a 5 up, 5 up, 5 up. With Strength 5, AP -2, and you're re-rolling to wounds, successful wounds. And what's great, it's not just in combat. So if someone's shooting you with, like, say, an Iron Drake
or a cannon,
you wounded me on 5s, re-roll that, please. He didn't wound me. Oh, what a shame! It can really just help, just keep its 5 or make something that is already really tougher. And it's if you're taking the Tomb King, you're putting it on it. Doesn't matter where you are, basically, you take it. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Cool. Shield of Ptah. What does that one do for us?
It's a shield, and additionally, any models that direct attack at it suffer -1 weapon skill. Not the best, because obviously how weapon skill works and that it won't usually change. I
don't hate it. I don't hate it because you are undead, so you have inherently lower weapons initiative. You have weapon skill 6 on your Tomb King. Here's the problem. It's in the same slot as Armor of Ages.
Yes.
But you, in like a dragon challenge, for example, you're going to knock them down from weapon skill 7 to weapon skill 6, which means that they're going to hit you on 4s. And you can, my will be done to get up to weapon skill 7. So in that matchup, it can change it. It's -1 to hit for them and +1 to hit for you, which is really nice. I think it's a very specific use case, and you'd see it a lot more if we didn't have Armor of Ages.
So with that, I don't think it will make me hit on 3s, because it's when they direct attacks at me. So it's not it's not when they're in combat with me. It's just
it's any enemy models that direct their attacks suffer -1 to the weapon skill. So as long as they attack first, they would be getting -1. If you're unfortunate enough to be hitting them first, too bad, so sad.
Yeah, all right, yeah.
But here's the problem: you can't then have a flail or a great weapon, because you'd have to use your shield. So you have to then be running. And you like running the biting blade anyway, so that's not much of a problem for you. But you have to kind of jump through some hoops to get there, I would say, which is an interesting proposition, especially because the shield's not going to give you a better save if you're on a dragon. Maybe if we go to, foot-mounted units, maybe you go, you know what? I haven't got enough wounds to make the Armor of Ages worth taking. But if I can just make them not hit me with that Ogre Blade character, maybe that's worth going for. Talismans, Crown of Kings, Monarch only, command subphase. You can resurrect the fallen as if you were using a rise. If it's past, single friendly unit of warriors, archers, skeleton horsemen, or horse archers regains D3+1 wounds. I don't care.
No, I'd say if you're going for that more survivability and big things, so maybe, but it's 30 points, and I'd say you'll bring some back. It's just not worth it, I don't think, because you're getting D3+1 on kind of meanest.
You can't do it on Tomb Guard. That's the big problem, I think. If you could take it on Tomb Guard, and we were in a meta where we were getting bricks of infantry fighting against each other, and
another hand,
you could do it in combat. You could be like, cool, I'm just going to have like this endless like attrition brick, but you can't do that. So I'm just going to take another level 2 and be better than that.
Yeah, and you get more wounds that way as well.
And it's cheaper.
It's just better.
So, what does the Collar of Shepesh do for us?
So this is single use, and when the wearer loses its last wound on a roll of a 6+, on a roll of a 4+, the wound isn't lost, and a single friendly model is removed from play instead as a casualty. So I was looking at this at the start. It seems like, oh, great, I can keep my guy alive. But obviously, if let's say I've taken 3 wounds and I only have 1 left and I fail all 3, it doesn't matter.
No.
And also, it's on a 4+. Why am I paying for something that I have to then do another roll?
They took some lessons from the von Carsteins, but just they weren't, paying much attention, basically. That's what happened. Yeah, like 25 points, I'm not taking this. It's also in the talisman slot. No, thank you. I'll just take a 5-up ward every time instead of a 4-up ward for my last wound that also kills a model. So the funny thing about this is, say you've got like a dragon that's flown off and there's nothing within command range. You roll the 4-up, you're like, yes, my model survives. I remove a single friendly model within range, looks around. That's my Lord on Dragon. It's the only friendly model. So it's just baked in ways for it to ruin
not
you.
Worth it.
No. On to Magic Standards then. So we've got a Magic Standard, 80 points, Battle Standard Bearer only, because they needed to print those words, despite it being at a points cost where only the Battle Standard Bearer could take it. Sure. You know what? I don't hate that because it future-proofs them for if they put in like a Royal Host. Not a Royal Host, whatever the dwarf one is.
Royal Clan.
Royal Clan. Have extra points on your magic banners. Why not? Sure. So it future-proofs you against that. I don't hate that at all. BSB only. End of any phase in which one or more models in the unit joined by the standard of the cursing word lost its last wound to an enemy attack. The unit that made the attack takes a leadership test. If they fail, they take D3 strength 2 hits. Ooh.
For every model that was lost the wounds, just saying, lost its last wounds.
The unit takes, this is like one or more models. So if you have it in a unit of skeletons, someone shoots the skeletons, it dies. The unit shooting them takes D3 strength 2 hits for each model.
For every model that died, their last line.
Yeah, to be fair,
they have to do a leadership test. And things that are shooting me usually are like the kind of dwarves or leadership 9.
Yeah.
Like, it would be great potentially versus, let's say, Dark Elves with their kind of smaller squad shooting. But once again...
And their leadership 10 bubble from their Dreadlord Dun Dragon.
Yes, and it's D3 strength 2. It's 80 points, and you're better off just taking a war banner.
Yeah.
It's just...
I hate it.
It's another narrative thing that you could... If you proper text it, maybe, and you go for loads of necromancy and debuffs that way, but it's 80 points, I think, would just be wasted.
Yeah, I agree. Icon of the Sacred Eye. This one's a little bit better. What's it do?
So it's 50 points. It's quite expensive, but it just gives your unit +1 weapon skill. Okay, so obviously, as we talked about, we're low weapon skill anyway. So it gets Tomb Guard up to 3 to 4. And if you've got Tomb King or Tomb Prince, then you can get to weapon skill 5, which once again puts you on that versus those top infantry and top kind of models. So, like, let's say Warriors of Chaos Knights coming to me, they're now hitting me in 4s rather than 3s. It could be okay with Skeleton Warriors, getting them up to that weapon skill 3 all the time. But it has its place. Once again, like, we're not here, I don't think, with our big blocks doing the damage output. So...
I think if I'm running a big roadblock, I'm putting it in because
100%.
It slows down how fast they die significantly.
Yeah.
So I think that's really valuable to me. Icon of Rakaf, 40 points. Unless making a charge move, a unit carrying the icon may perform a single free reform at any point during its movement. Now that's pretty spicy. Here's the problem. It's worse drilled, or it's a side grade of drilled, sorry. Because a lot of the time when I want the reform is when I'm about to charge. You're looking at me like you're going to tell me that this is going to rock my world. Go on.
So, I've seen this in one battle report online, and I thought it was the funniest and probably cleverest thing. So they had a massive unit of, Skeleton Chariots, and he was able to get through a very small block, like gap, because it's at any point in your movement. So you go up as much as you want, reform back to where you want to be and what angle you did, and then because they have reserve move as well, you know that, and you've got them miles up the board, and it's one again. Once again, it is a worse drill because you can't charge, but it's funny and it can really get your opponent off play, kind of thing.
I guess it's kind of the same as drilled because you have to forward plan it a little bit, but you can start in marching column. You can't march.
We can't march. That would be amazing. That would be phenomenal if you could like march and you
Are there
can't go on
any
with
are
fly.
there any fly models in this army that can also take a banner? No. And also be in marching column? No. Okay, that would be.
That
I,
would be
I was I was
that'd
cooking.
be
I
cool.
was ready to cook.
I'm sorry, I turned that off.
That would be amazing, though.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I didn't want it anyway. Mirage banner, and then it's 20 points to be -1 to be shot in the shooting phase. This is not the meta for it. We're not seeing a lot of ballistic skill shooting units, but there's going to be a time, and you're
Yeah.
going to be happy about it. You're going to be running 100 skeletons in one unit, and you're going to go, you want to thin me out? No.
So this is something I would use maybe on like a skirmishing unit or unit that you're sending up. So I'd say like chariots again, because they're
Yeah.
a bit further away. They've got Dryas Dash, so once again versus dwarves on that kind of Iron Drakes, it makes them harder to hit. Necropolis Knights, because they're the ones who want to go forward and probably aren't going to be near your wizard, etc. So it does help. And I'd say it could also stack with casket. But as you said, it's ballistic skill shooting isn't the way at the moment. It's more those kind of
give it 6 months. Gunnery School and Nuln. They're coming.
Yeah,
I'm telling you. I haven't even seen their rules, but I just have been shot by Empire gun lines. So I'm like, I know it's going to suck for me.
Gonna get worse.
I might be a black powder convert. That's all I'm going to say. I want to be the one with the gun. But yeah, like this is something I could see putting on a BSB, actually. A BSB. Can the BSB go on the chariot? Yeah, he can, can't
he? Yeah, on the chariot.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. No, that's 20 points. Like, that's a very acceptable points cost for a model. Into the enchanted items, Cloak of the Dunes, in fact. 50 points, it gives you what Magic Carpet gives you effectively, but also if you fly over things, you do D6 strength 2 hits at AP1. Woo! Yeah.
It's just really handy. It's really good on a wizard. You just
Mhm.
can keep moving 9. You can march away 18 if you really want. That's something I've actually forgotten. Once again, it's not running that fly. It's always using that 9. But it's, let's say, with the reserve, you can keep jumping your characters away. It's 10 more points than the flying carpet, but you get +1 move. So it's one of those.
You know what
And
else
that
you get?
D6 strength 2. You can technically do it twice because obviously, no, you can only do it once because the move subphase.
In the remaining moves, yeah.
Yeah.
So here's why you should take this over Flying Carpet every time. There isn't a line on there that says you can't be in the same unit as like other models. You can't, like, Flying Carpet stops you from going into a unit. We're in Pillar of Fire land now, so you're going to tell me something that makes me sad.
So the fly keyword means you can't join units without fly.
Of course it does.
But obviously, because this is the big in the mirror match. If you have Mortuary Cult versus another Tomb King player who has the Cloak of Dunes, there's a way you can just snipe their Hierophant. Yeah. So as soon as you put it on yourself, you cannot hide in a unit.
Never mind. I thought it was being big brain, but you're very right. The fly rule is such a, like, there's so much about it that is so easy to miss. You don't take terrain penalty unless you end your move in the terrain. And that sounds common sense, but that means if you start in the terrain, you don't take the penalties, as long as you don't end in the terrain as well.
Oh,
see, there we go.
There we go.
Another convert. It's literally the bottom line of the fly text. If you haven't read it, go and read the fly unit entry in the book right now. You'll be like, I had no idea there were more words there. I thought it just gave me fly. Icon of Rulership, extremely common, but 35 points. What do we get for that one?
So this is on a chariot unit. What it does is it doubles that model's unit strength from 3 to 6, and it basically makes you activate like a heavy chariot. So your impact hits at AP -2, and they also gain magical attacks. So this seems all right if you're going more like a chariot-based army, but because it's only the model that have unit strength kind of thing. If it was the unit strength, I would have this on every chariot kind of character, just because it is quite useful there. AP -2 is really good, but once again, it's on that one character. You roll a 1, you get 1. It's only D3 impact hits for chariots, are light chariots. So there's swings and roundabouts, but once again, it's 35 points where I'd rather just kind of either keep them up or say give them a better weapon.
If this was like 10 to 15 points as an upgrade for character chariots and it wasn't out your magical item allotment, I'd be like, yeah, this is great. Probably take it.
It,
But 35 points?
if it was just that like 20 points or even just
Yeah.
25 to who
I
I can
don't
put
think I'm
on
going
my.
as high as 25. That's
The only reason why I say 25 is so you can put on your chariot champion. So at least one you can do. You don't need a character to. You can put on your
yeah.
champion. You can't use that. It's just your characters. As I said, I'd rather give them other stuff.
I'm not sure I'm ever taking it if it's a magic item. If it's like an upgrade to the chariot specifically for characters or maybe champions, I could see it. But I think just like it's so expensive and it takes up so much other important space. I can't justify
It's
it
a
really.
ruby ring there, kind of thing.
It's more than a ruby ring. For you can spend 5 points more and have a slightly better chariot. Death Mask of Carnut. 20 points. The bearer gains terror. I'm going to put this on all my dragons. Or not, because they have terror already. But you can put this on a non... unit champions.
That's it there. You put it on one of your unit champions. So I say, once again, Chariots is a really good one. Your Necropolis Knights, just because they're going to be a bit away. And it's just causing that terror check can be really useful. As I say, if you're going down the Necromancy kind of route, and let's say you went for two Lich Priests with Necromancy, you can get at that high leadership debuff already. And then you charge and you just do a constant kind of cascade of people failing. There's a special character, which the Nikara. He makes you roll 3d6 for fear and terror check. So if you put that on a big block of infantry,
sure.
Yes, they're probably not going to charge, but if they did charge, 3d6
easy for you to say
for the leadership test. So there's that, and it's only 20 points. It's that key point thing, so you can put it on a champion.
Cool. Yeah, no, I like it. At 20 points, that's pretty solid. I've set this up cunningly, so I got to talk about the best item in the book. Enkil's Canopy. 30 points. Single use during the command subphase of their turn. If they're not engaged in combat, the bearer may attempt to unleash its contents by making a leadership test using its own unmodified leadership. Bring a BSB. Get the reroll. It's really important. If the test is passed, all remains in play spells are currently in play are dispelled, including friendly remains in play spells. Did you worry about the Wood Elf matchup because of all of them Pillars of Fire? Worry no more. Pop this on turn 3. They suddenly are going, I've spent all that time avoiding you getting those Pillars of Fire nearby. Now I'm sad.
Yeah.
This is huge. This is really, really big. And I think it actually tilts the Wood Elf matchup in your favor if you're playing like the Mortuary Cults with 2 Caskets and a Screaming Skull Catapult.
Yeah, it's just what you say. It's one of those protections against it. Obviously, right now, Purifier is one of the best spells in the game because you can go through your entire army. You can keep going back and forth, and
hell yeah,
you cast it, run away, and it just keeps going back and forth. There's nothing you can do. Whereas this can really stop it in its track. And as you said, the Wood Elves, if they've got their is it up? They can get up to 5 of these on the board, I think, or 6.
Oh no, they can theoretically get what? Assuming you're playing Ruler 3, which not everyone is, you could get 9.
There we go then. So on that turn, we've done them all. Okay, cool. I'm going to try and stop this right now, and you've wasted all that time, and now I can try and clear off the ones I've casted it for the position you've now got yourself in.
Yeah. So I've talked about a really good one-use item. Do you want to talk about a really bad one-use item?
So the Hieratic Jar, single use again. It's 25 points, and it's common. Okay, during the command subphase of this turn, if they're not engaged with combat, they can use it, and they can use the Arise special rule again. You laugh about it, but if you're going down that kind of points denial and really trying to churn up something, getting so many wounds back onto your skeleton warriors can be really strong. If, let's say, you're a bit worried of certain things, so you can heal your dragon by 2 wounds. If you're in the cult, you can technically get yourself up to 4 wounds back on that one turn that you really need. And say, like, once again, chariots, you shabby, you can bring back so much on that. For 25 points, it's not the worst. And what makes it good is that it's a common, so you can still take, let's say, Lord Familiar or the one previously to stop it. So it doesn't limit you on your other stuff you can take. It's more kind of depending on your play style and how you want to play your game rather than thinking about what the enemy are going to do to me. But as you say, it's not as good as the previous one, but it's okay.
It's also not as good as the Scepter for vampire counts, who just get to do it twice every turn.
Yeah. not
That's
fair, is it?
no, it's really not. I am being overly harsh. You're right. There are times that you might want to take it, and just having that burst of healing is quite nice. So you could look at it as sort of like a health pot, but for the rest of your army.
Yeah,
If you look
for
at
a
it in those
unit, for
terms,
2 units, and it just means you can spread out. Because that's the big thing with Tomb Kings is, yes, we can keep healing them, but if let's say 6 of our units are hurt, I've got to prioritize, and this just means I can do it to another one, hopefully.
yeah, or double up into one like
Yeah.
really valuable unit. Cool. Scarab Brooch, 20 points. When using Beneath the Sands, your summoned unit can come in entirely within 18 inches of a Lich Priest instead of the usual 12. Solid. You're going to see that maybe in Mortuary Cult and probably not
Yeah.
anywhere else.
I would say Mortuary Cult, because I'd say it's really good for that mirror match, because you have your Tomb Scorpion, he's got that terror below that makes them do initiative test, and usually they'll try and hide it, but if you can get it behind where they haven't really screened off, it's one of those things that if that's kind of your meta, I would definitely just try and protect yourself. And it also means you can get your Tomb Scorpions in better positions, so
Sure.
behind their lines for the next turn charge, or they have to reform or turn around, or as you say, you can get a lot closer to say catapults, those kind of things there.
Yeah, now you've brought up the different ways that you can use the sort of from Beneath the Sands rule without having to, go for those sort of initiative test and die rolls, which are very gimmicky. This is the sort of thing that I could see myself, if I have like 20 points spare at the end of the list in character, which is not super often, but if that's how my list is written, I could see myself putting it on a character, especially a dragon mounted Lich Priest who's just got the range to get where you want it to be.
It's more if you're going for that, I'd say quite a few ambush units. So if you're going for the 3 Tomb Scorpions,
Yeah.
I'd say even like the Skeleton Skirmishers that you can get paid for it on, and just get them a 5-man unit to just block something. 25 points for that 5-man, 20 points for that 5-man unit. You've chucked them in front. You're not charging me this turn. Okay, I can protect myself. I can force you to go another way, kind of thing. So there's little things like that.
I think this is a really underutilized aspect of Tomb Kings at the moment, and I think that's going to be something that over the next year or so we see people using more and more, and it's going to be a real strength to them. So yeah, something I'm going to keep my eye on. It's definitely.
And a big thing with that, if they're obviously talking about this general's handbook kind of esque thing, and if they make scouts that +1, so move away from the skeleton horse archers, and you go for more of those skeleton skirmishers, and you just pop them up when you need them to, and start blocking those things off with really cheap, efficient chaff redirectors, and then I can focus on where I want to shoot, kind of thing.
Fantastic. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to the infantry, and we're starting off with the Tomb Guard. So let's go to here. Do you want to give us a run through on the Tomb Guard?
So Tomb Guard are like elite infantry. So once again, movement 4, weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 3, strength 4, toughness 4, which is really good, and it's really quite. It was nice to see that having that T4 makes it a little bit more survivable in that kind of infantry matchup. Wounds 1, obviously. Initiative 2, we're undead. We're always slow. 1 attack. Leadership 7, obviously 2 attacks, and strangely Initiative 3 with the Tomb Captain. So you gain plus an attack and an initiative.
That is odd.
Obviously, leadership is really low, but obviously we just keep near our general. That's the kind of the idea of them, keep them up there. They come stocked with hand weapons, light armor, shields. So they do come innately with that -1 AP because of the Capesh rule.
Yeah.
They can take halberds, which I probably would take just because it gets you that strength 5. So once again, versus monstrous infantry, you're wounding on 3s. Other kind of T3 stuff, you're wounding on 2. So it's really helpful. Obviously, it depends on if they've charged you or you've charged, and if you want to get your a 5 up or a 6 up save.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can take a captain, standard bearer, musician. This is something I usually wouldn't take in an undead army, is that musician for 6 points. Like, I'd rather just crumble 1. It's not the end of the world.
Oh, I couldn't agree
Brown,
more. I've been in so many close combats with undead and then be like, oh, guess I get pushed back, or whatever, because I've my opponent's got a big brick that's always going to have that full command. I think that the main reason, in fact, that I disagree is because at the moment you're looking to get that magical combat res 7 or as close to it as possible, so that you can match a dragon when your champion challenges him out, and you're like, oh, I've got combat res +5, you got 5 in total, I've got a musician, sucks to be you, I outnumber you, turns out you rolled poorly and now you flee.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, actually, thinking like that, Because I've always just thought about it just more about
This is a 40k player thing, bud. Like, I was like you at the start of the edition, and my swap was from the +1 to rally, so I really like it on my fast cavalry because I'm going to be fleeing a lot with them, and I get the +1 to rally. But there's just a point where you go 6 points. I think that might be the best bit of like command in the game. I think that I like that I put them on all my units. I don't take standards a lot of the time because I play like points denial. But yeah, for me, musicians.
Okay. All right, I'll have a look at that.
Yeah.
So carry on. They can take a magic banner up to 50 points. So once again, they can take that +1 weapon skill banner. Team captain can take 25 points of magic items, and 1 unit per 1,000 points can have the drilled for 1 point. And the phalanx rule for 1 point per model.
Yeah.
So decent rules, but once you start adding this all on, they become 13 points a model. And obviously they get the cleaving blow, which is their kind of really cool ability, the mini killing blow, which can be really useful. Obviously, regen 6. They come innately with that Indomitable one. So this is why I don't really run the musicians, because you beat me by 1. I just don't lose that guy still. I just go that one. And if I have that Nikara phalanx, I'm just like, cool, I'm just going to stay here as well. So nothing really happens. But as you say, now you've talked about ways of kind of countering those dragons who I challenge out. If I can get that same static combat res of 6, I win it.
Yeah, it's instead of using them to sort of absorb the blow, it's more putting pressure on your opponent, I think, in the case of Undead having the musician. I think as well, I am not sold on the halberds. Like a 5-up save and a 6-up save is not like, I'm not really super bothered about the difference because a lot of stuff coming in is going to have a bit of AP. But just the +1 strength's not that big. I'm not super worried about that, especially because you've got like the pseudo cleaving blow in there as well, and you've got the AP built in. So I think I'm pretty happy with just keeping them cheaper, especially because I definitely want drilled and Nikara and flanks. So I don't think you're wrong to take it, but I think for me personally, I'm going to be going hand weapon and shield with these guys.
It's what's your current probably like local meta, so that's what you're thinking at. Because as I say, if you're playing lots of monstrous infantry that are T4, I'm like, well, as I say, I'm not getting a save anyway. I go to strength 5, so I wound you on 3s, and it just means I get more through, and I try and clear you off as much as possible. I can keep coming back. If you lose the model, it's a big deal for me. I don't care. I can get about 5 to 7 a turn with a single caster, so I can keep myself alive.
I guess the and just last point on this before we move on, the downside of halberds is you're probably not going to be striking before your opponent. Even if you charge, sometimes you're going second. So you like having the more defensive loadout might be better in terms of just getting more attacks back. That might be something to think about. But yeah, a really solid unit that is not really the metaphor, I think. But if we ever see a point where we're wanting to run bricks of infantry with characters in them, this is a really good brick of infantry with characters. Get that My Will Be Done, get them up initiative or weapon skill, put a banner in there to give them +1 weapon skill. You got a real scary unit that people don't want to deal with. Then we've got the cheap one. So Tomb Guard with 10 points. These are 4 points. Skeleton Warriors, they have all of the stats that an Undead have, which is Weapon Skill 2, Ballistic Skill 2, Strength and Toughness 3, Initiative 2, Leadership no, but points 4, so you can't grumble too much. Hand Weapon and Shield, you can give them light armor for a point. You're probably not doing that. 25% of their cost for a slight upgrade in survivability that goes away as soon as you get stomped by a dragon. I'm not going to bother. Spears is like a 50-50. I think I like them just cheap, honestly. Again, 25% to maybe get some second rank attacks that aren't going to do very much because they're hitting at 4s or 5s. But again, your meta may vary. If you're looking at big bricks of infantry as being valuable, maybe Spears is something you look at. They've got the full command. The Master of Arms can take a 25-point magic item. No magic banner on here. You'd have to put a BSB if you wanted to put a magic standard in there, which is kind of a big downside to me. And then again, 0 to 1 per 1,000 points can have Nikara flanks. Oh, and sorry, there's the magic banner.
I was about to say,
yeah, down at the bottom where it shouldn't be. This is like if you want a cheap tar pit, like 30 to 40 of these plus the Nikara phalanx. Yeah, you can't.
I love this. So I think this. So as I say, current meta, big blocks of infantry aren't there to do what they used to do, but grind out fights and win, keep killing. These do that tar pit for so cheap. So as I say, if you just keep them bare bones as possible, so you just want bodies, you can get 40 of them for 160 points.
Yeah.
With the things 175, you get 2 bricks of those, and as you say, you can keep raising them up, you keep challenging out those dragons. And it's just at a point where everything I'm going to kill you with is free to do so because your bigger threats are in these massive blobs. As you say, if you do elementalism, they've got a 5-up ward now. And I say the key thing that keeps them alive isn't their arm save. It's that 6+ regen. Yes, it counts with combat res, but it's that I've got another model who can crumble instead of I've lost them all and crumble. And the amount of times I've lived because of that 6-up regen it's amazing. And if you do have that big block, fear actually becomes a bit more useful.
Mm-hmm.
So it does stop certain things charging. So like a really big thing is like I see Brett Knights coming at you. They don't ignore fear. So they have to take that fear test. And it has stopped certain things. Obviously, Exiles with the leadership veteran can be that. But there is chance of a big thing of you failed that or you failed again. So we have seen people with leadership 10 fail at that with a reroll. And that changes the game. It's like that unit's doing nothing. It can't move. It's in a perfect spot for me. It's just, if you want a good tar pit, this is the one.
Yeah, and it sits at a static combat res of 5 before you put any fancy stuff in there. 3 ranks from Horde, Close Order, and then a banner as well. So pretty standard, pretty good in terms of like picking up static combat res. And you can do other stuff in there, get it up to that magical 7.
To get to that 6 combat res.
Yeah, you need a
dragon. There we go.
a BSB in there to get them up to the magical 7 to counter the dragon. But if you just hold them in place because you Nikara flanks and you don't fall back, and then you charge them in the flank with something, potentially something with Swift Stride, then you can be in a good spot. We got some skeleton archers. You've talked about them. There's a magic item in the Arcane Journal, just to briefly touch on, gives the entire unit poison.
Great.
You can take a unit of, let's say, 90 of these. Maybe 90 is too many, but you could
it's a big footprint that
40 to 60. You can just bamf them around the battlefield with the spell from Elementalism, Travel Mystical Pathways. You can give them a ward save. They can all have poison. You can shoot at dragons to your heart's content. And it is truly one of the strategies you can employ. It's not one that I'm going to do, but it is one of the things that you can do.
Yeah.
If we're talking about them as just sort of like a general unit, they're aggressively fine. I'm not going to take them in favor of skeleton skirmishers. They're basically just normal skeletons with bows. You can have command, no other upgrades. You can pay a point for light armor, or you can pay 1 less point and have skeleton skirmishers. Pay a point to give them the war bows, which is fine. But they get skirmish and they get vanguard on top of everything else. Oh, and chariot runners in case.
Move 5 is quite good.
And move 5, they're speedy.
It does help.
Yeah, capped at a unit size of 20, which was very smart because this is one of the few armies in the game where you might go, I'm just going to take 100 skirmishers. And that would actually be kind of concerning because, again, you could just do the float around shenanigans with Travel Mystical Pathways. So
what's great with these kind of like skeleton archers, as we say, they've got that arrows of the sack, so they're always hitting on 5s. They're cheap. They're really efficient for their points cost. So I say LGT, I had 13 skeleton skirmishers. The idea is to block the woods. I think they alone over the 2 games I played Dwarves killed like 9 Iron Drakes. Just because I hit you on 5, win you on 5. Oh, you roll a 2 or 3, you've lost the guy.
Yeah.
And that's like 20, they're like 17, 19 points Iron Drakes. And you shoot me back. I'll just raise it back up, mate. They are just really kind of good points, efficient. But as I say, I'm more on the skeleton skirmishers front, just because of the vanguard, the skirmishers, and the move 5. So with the reserve move, you can go 10 inches in any direction you really care about.
Yeah.
Play kind of keep away and just keep running around.
If I'm writing a list, I'm starting with 3 squads of skirmishers. They're super cheap. They're 3 drops you can put down without caring. You then get a vanguard move in case that matters. Just a really solid little unit that you can use to get that deployment edge that people are starting to learn that's really important. Ushabti. These are pretty solid. There is a Venerable Ushabti. We'll talk about those next week. But for these ones, they're Monstrous Infantry, move 5, so a little bit slower than some Monstrous Infantry. Weapon skill 4, that's on the high end. Normally it's 3, you see on like an Ogre. Strength and Toughness 4, Ballistic skill 3, I should mention, because obviously the bows are the good bits. 3 wounds, 3 attacks, Initiative 2, 49 points. So a pretty solid profile there, you're rocking a Ritual Blade and Heavy Armour, which is basically a AP3 Great Weapon, getting you up to Strength 6 AP3. Or you can change that for a Great Bow, which you probably should, which is a 30-inch range bow, Strength 6, AP1, Armor Bane 2, so 6 is to wound or AP3, multiple wounds 2, and then Volley Fire in case for some reason you decided you wanted to rank them up, and then stay still. Not the strength of this unit, but you can do that.
So this is my favourite unit in the game. I've loved it since the first time I played them, so I just love the aesthetic of them, these Anubis-looking guard. It's just that great bow. So you're always hitting on a 4. So that's a big thing from 8. They will add Ballistic Skill 2. They're always hitting on 4 now. 30-inch range. So you've got 35-inch threat range. And then with the reserve move, you can move them backwards 2.5. Just keep yourself further away. Strength 6. So there's only a few things that I know are Strength 7 innate, Toughness 7 innately. And that's the Great Unclear one, which you don't really see. Obviously, dragons galore are all T6 kind of thing. So it wounds stuff that really scary on 4s and most other things on 2s. So like other kind of, let's say, big important things. So Peg Knights, the great anti-Peg Knight weapon, I feel.
Oh, yeah.
You're hitting them on a 4. Doesn't matter if I can only see one of them. I'm going to hit you on a 4. With the reroll ones to hit spell. It's really good. AP -1, Strength 6, so I'm wounding you on a 2. That's great. I'm winning you on a 2. AP -1, so you're on a 4 up. And if Exiles is the big threat at the moment, they don't have the ward save at the moment, so they only got the 1 save. And the thing that really hurts them is that multi-wounds 2.
Yeah.
So each wound that gets through is a dead Peg Knight.
And if you roll a 6 to wound,
you
just get a 6-up save against it, which is brutal.
Yeah, they, to me... So my first game with them, we were doing an escalation league. I had 3 of these versus my mates who has 3 Peg Knights. I got turn 1. We're like, let's see what these can do. I hit you 3 times. Cool. They always hit on 4s. Doesn't care about the range. I made my 4 wounds. 1 was a 6. He failed his 3 armor saves. Cool. And he failed all 3 wards. So he lost these 3-man pegs. And we just stared and were like, these are the most broken thing in the game. And since then, they are my favorite thing. They are, for what they can do, they are phenomenal. And also then in combat, they're not that bad. They're Strength 4, AP -1.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
Weapon Skill 4 was really nice.
Weapon Skill 4, as you said. And they've got so many wounds that I'd say I just need 1 wound left. Then I can bring back a 4 per wizard kind of thing, or 5 in the Mortuary Cult. So I can just keep bringing them back.
Really solid. Great stuff. That does bring us to the end of the infantry, and we're on to swarms. Now, there are 2 swarms here. I don't love undead swarms, I'll be honest, because crumble really hurts them. 37 points for the tomb swarms. It's your standard 2 to 10. They have a 6-up regen. They've got poison attacks, which is genuinely really nice. Weapon Skill 3 as well, which is quite a big breakpoint for not taking as many wounds back as you might expect. Strength and Toughness 2, 5 wounds per base, 5 attacks per base. Leadership 10 for some reason. Who can say why?
I think every swarm has that. I think every swarm is leadership 10.
Nope. There's a lot of, because they're all unbreakable, but there's a lot of them that have really bad leadership. Yeah. And that matters when you're like, I'm going to try and march or do a thing, or I get streamed. It comes up sometimes. Yeah. It's a niche thing. But yeah, leadership 10. 37 points. You'll take these as a casting battery for Mortuary Cult. Otherwise, I'm not super sold on them. They're, I think, a little too squishy for my blood.
It's just the amount of wounds that they have, and if something charges them and they survive once again on that 1 wound, they can get loads back from the Mortuary Priest, the Lich Priests. They act as like an infantry, so they can get between 5 and 7 wounds back, and it's just I'd say it's a big target if you take a big unit. But as you said, the main place where you see them is that Mortuary Cult as that kind of magic battery, just siphoning them.
I shouldn't slate them too much. This weekend just gone, I charged a 1-wound Dreadlord on Dragon into them because I had very few good options, and this was like, get me out of dodge.
Yeah.
I killed 2 of them. The other 2 swung back and did kill my lord, which was very funny.
It's like if you don't kill the base, it's like all swarms.
Yeah.
You get all their attacks. So you get 5 attacks on poison. I'm just hoping for that 6.
Yeah.
And once again, it's just, I feel like a very good thing in this game. It's just the volume of saves you have to make. So if you can get those poisons through, it's lots of attacks.
Yeah.
it just
The odds were definitely in my favour with my 3-up
100%,
save and my 5-up ward, and if I hadn't failed the crucial save, they would have crumbled to dust. But they didn't, so sometimes that just happens. You'll see him. You'll definitely see him, but mostly Mortuary Cult. Carrion. This is a spicy opinion I have. I like Carrion. You know where I like Carrion? When I'm going to be running, I'm playing against dragons. I've got big bricks of Tomb Guard or like combat res bricks. I'm going to be challenging them out. I want Carrion in that list because they have Swift Stride. I'm going to let the dragon charge me. I'm going to potentially lose combat turn 1. Maybe I don't challenge deliberately, and Nikara flanks, or I win combat and they give ground, whatever. Next turn, I do the same thing again. I challenge, but this time I've got Carrion in the flank. Swift Stride, I'm going to run them down. This is like a tech piece for trying to deal with dragons, basically. I'm not seeing people run them, and that's because there's so much good stuff in the book that it's hard to fit tech pieces in when you can just go, I'm going to take good stuff. But I think there's genuinely play with these. The downside is they are squishy. They are made out of tissue paper. They are T4, which is nice, but they are 2 wounds. 27 points with no real save other than a regen is...
So something I would maybe look to use them is running them maybe those groups of 2s or 3s, so they're quick chip, and be that semi kind of monster, War Machine Hunter as well, because they do have 3 attacks each, strength 4, and it's just one of those, and they fly 10, so you can get 20 inches, and it just obviously helps. But I say the way you're thinking about running them, I hadn't thought before, but that sounds like a great way, as you say, to break the dragon. If they fail that, you chase them down that Swiss shrine, you've got them nicely and easy.
I think what you've said is the better way to put them in the list, which is a War Machine Hunter. But then having them as a tech piece is like, oh, I found a situation where I can get a flank charge because the dragon's tied up with my infantry. Like, that's just nice to keep in mind. So, Carrion, not as bad as you thought. You heard it here first. This is the hot takes that we're bringing you. Then we have my least favorite unit in the game. Talk about them because I don't want to, and make it brief.
Skeleton Horsemen, they're just your basic heavy cavalry. Weapon skill 2, strength and toughness 3, 1 wounds. Move 8, which is quite nice. They have Swift Stride. They've got Vanguard, which is quite nice. They're 11 points a model. You can give them light armor and cavalry, spears. And you can give them counter charge, which I think is the most pointless thing in the game, because they can go up to initiative 5. Everyone is faster than you when they charge you. I just wouldn't deal with them. They are just not worth the points. I've played them twice, and I just didn't think they did anything for me.
They don't. They're awful. So, with that said, we can move on to a really good unit. Skeleton Horse Archers, hell yeah, made from the same kit. If you have ended up with Skeleton Cavalry, do not fear. You can just make them into archers. If you've built them already, snap some arms off, put some bows on there. You're not going to be upset. Horse Archers are so good.
You say that, so I made a big unit of 10 at the start when they came out, and I was like, Horse Archers better, and they were all painted, so I just was snapping off the spears to get bows on for LGT, because it's just so much better for Horse Archers.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're a skirmishing swift light cavalry unit. The light cavalry doesn't actually matter here, but they are, you can go open order or skirmishes. You're normally going to go skirmishes. They have reserve move built in, so they're like a far-ranging unit. They're great screeners. You can give them chariot runners, which I'm not going to do, but if you're playing like a chariot-heavy list, that's a really nice way to use them. You can give them light armor for a point. Don't bother. Probably just give them a musician and nothing else. Oh no, you can't run away because you're undead. But they're just like a good skirmishing screen or harassment unit. It doesn't matter that you've moved, you're still going to be shooting things on a 5, even if they are at the maximum 24 inches of your warbows and you've moved. It's just a good harassing unit. I really like them.
So, as I said, it's that same thing. They play a bit like the skirmishers. So, once again, LGT, I think they took down like another 6 Iron Drakes. Once again, it's just that harassment. And as you say, if you get that kind of charge in the front, you're holding them off with the skeleton archers, you can get a quite easy probably rear charge with them, because obviously they scout. You're probably going to try and put them in places where they can come behind and deal with and just be annoying. So like they're great frenzy kind of drawers out kind of thing, force them to go a different direction. They're just great for the points. I would just keep them as just 5 mans as 1155 points. I say currently obviously scouts don't count as a drop, so they save you drops as well to get you that quicker, that first appointment. And obviously, depending on the deployment, you can use that scouter just to block out another scout, like an enemy scouter.
Which is really important to do. I've been winning. I think every game where I've played and I have loads of scouts and my opponent has loads of scouts and added, I don't think I've lost a single one because I've been throwing units away to take board control. And, you know, at some point people are going to be like, oh, hold on. All these other games that people have played, like 40k or Age of Sigmar, where they've had these rules already, like, we should probably take a leaf out of their book on these because it turns out having board control is really, really important.
Yeah.
But until then, I'm going to keep eating good and I'm going to take those cheap skirmishes, those cheap scouts, and just get out the way. And also, a lot of places are playing that the scouts don't give +1 to deployment roll off. So that's a solid rule there. But Skeleton Horse Archers, you love them, and if you don't, you should. Great unit. Necropolis Knights. This is the first of the monstrous cavalry, and I like them. They're great models. I don't know if I love them at 54 points, but they are movement 7. They've got all the stuff you might expect, such as Swift Stride and impact hits. Always nice to have some cavalry with impact hits. They are Strength and Toughness 4. They have 3 wounds, 2 attacks each, but then the Necroserpents have 3 attacks. Leadership 8, which is fine. They've got cavalry spears. The captain can have a great weapon, which is weird because the rest of the unit can't, but okay, that's fine. They're rocking a 4-up save between the Armored Hide and the Light Armor and Shield. They have got Indomitable 1, Kopesh, in case you use the hand weapons in the second round of combat, or if you get charged. Poison attacks on the Necroserpent. Anything else that's important on there? What weapon have the...
Swift Stride as well.
Yeah, they've got the Swift Stride. Yeah,
they've just got hand weapons.
That's what I was looking for. I was expecting to see something a little bit sexier, but they don't even have...
They've got Poison is where it's at, and it's Strength 5. It's just volume of attacks is the idea of this unit. So, like, without the impact hits, with a unit of 3, you can get, I think, 16 attacks. So it's just getting through that. And these are special Tomb Guard. They already have weapon skill 4 as well. So they're quite...
Oh, that's true.
They're not too bad in that regard.
Yeah. And you can have 3 attacks with a great weapon, which is Strength 6, AP 2. So that's actually quite nice to have on the unit as well. And then plus those 3 Strength 5 impact hits, you know, if you've got a unit of 3. Keep them cheap and cheerful. Probably not something that you're going to go for like a big Death Star of, but I like them. Despite being on a massive base, they are a little bit of an unwieldy unit to use, I think. Perfect. And then we've got the other unit you can make from the same kit, the Sepulchral Stalkers. And this is the one that you can take. You can take 1 unit of core in, I think, for Grand Army. Either that or Tomb Guard. Yeah, and they're a similar sort of price, but they are very different. So you've got movement 7 still, weapon skill 3, strength and toughness 4, 3 wounds, 2 attacks, leadership 8. They've got a shooting attack, which is an 18-inch range, strength 2. But you don't roll against their toughness, you roll against their initiative. So dwarves, I guess, suck it, but everyone else is fine. Turns off all their armor saves and then multiple wounds D3. So there's some things in the game that's going to concern, but I can't think of many off the top of my head. All those dwarf dragons that we see in the meta.
And also what's a bit weird with that, this is the one shooting attack that doesn't have arrows of attack.
I mean, I guess that makes sense because they're not using bows.
The ballistic 3, let's say, moving with them long range, because it's only 18 inches, it's something that usually isn't going to come up.
Yeah.
And, like, if you were going to play them, you probably want to have them as ambush. They come 54 points. It's just one of those that they're 5-up save, 6-up wards, 6-up regen. These are the one model, and someone said it, and I agreed with the major at the very start. It's the one thing I just can't figure out how to work. Like,
yeah, they do have, like, again, volume of attacks. So despite only having 2 attacks in the profile, they get an additional D3 attacks, and all of their attacks are strength 4, AP 1, which is aggressively fine. Weapon skill 3, so they're hitting on 4s most of the time. I mean, I'm not super jazzed by them. You can take them in core, but and you can give them ambushes if you want to pull off some sort of shenanigans there. They don't even get the impact hits, which is interesting because they're the same size.
That as well,
yeah. Obviously, having a rider on top is the thing that's heavy. It's not the massive snake that's. Anyway, so that's the monstrous cavalry, and we're on to the chariots, of which there is an entire unit. There is the skeleton chariot. Light Chariot, 43 points. So, you know, that's pretty cheap as chariots go. There's 2 crew, there's 2 steeds, and is there also a Master Charioteer as well?
So it's you upgrade one of the crew to a Master Charioteer.
Yeah, so each model has 4 attacks, unless you've upgraded to a champion. The crew have a hand weapon, cavalry spear, warbow. Everything else just has hand weapons. The rules in there, you know, D3 impact hits, but it's light cavalry, so there's no AP on it. They're Horde, so you could get up to combat res.
I didn't even realise Horde was there.
That's really funny. Horde does give you... Oh, no, it's Warband that gives you reroll charges.
Yeah, so it doesn't have that. It gives you plus leadership.
That's a really expensive unit to be trying to go for, you know, that massive combat res. Yeah, they're also open order, so immediately overwriting some of the bonus from being Horde. Reserve move built in, which is really nice for that flexibility. Swift Stride as well is good, obviously.
Yeah.
Movement 8 is slow for a light chariot, but fast for undead, so you can't quibble with that too much. You can take a 25-point magic item on the Master Charioteer and a 50-point magic standard. Anything super spicy with this that you like?
So with this unit, obviously it's movement 8. Let's say if you put in that Tomb King or Tomb Prince is probably a good one here because it's a lot cheaper. You can get to a movement 11 Swift Stride, so you can get 20-inch charge range. So that's quite big. This is where once again, that Deckmaster Canute is 20 points for Terror on like something that's going down the flank maybe. It can work, and it's only 20 points. It's once again, it's just one of these things that have just loads of attacks that obviously when they charge, they'll be strength 4 with the cavalry spears. They're weapon skill 3, so they're not as bad as like your normal kind of skeletons. Impact hits, yes, they're not great because they're no AP, but it's still just that volume. And it's more, this is one where you want to either hit from a flank or you want to hit something that's a bit lighter just to clear them off and use them more as like a rolling combat thing. So hit from one side, clear something hopefully light and easy, and then overrun into the next combat. So in that next combat, you have so much more combat res that you can hopefully break them down.
Yeah. I don't really have much to add. There is an entire detachment that might make you want to take chariots a little bit more.
That detachment, yeah. And obviously the big thing that really hurts them is that dry as dust. Just because once again, any flaming attacks, and how it works is if I take 4 flaming attack wounds, I have to technically do them one at a time for that 4+ to see, so it's not just afterwards. So you could lose quite a lot, and it's just a bit.
Being T4 with a low save as well.
Save is not great for a chariot.
No, because that makes them real scared by both Pillar of Fire and Fireball, and both of those are pretty much everywhere.
You get the 6-up regen, that's the best you've got. But as you say, Fireball is a great counter to this unit.
You're dry as dust, but you're not flammable. That's interesting.
The only thing I think I've got this correct that is flammable in the army, I think there's 2. It is the Tomb King and Tomb Prince are flammable.
Yeah.
I think maybe the Royal Herald, but he might just be dry as dust. But it's like everyone sort of like, it's flammable. I'm like, no. And it's like my Mortuary Cult list has nothing that's flammable. And I'm like, I still get my regen. So,
Just a weird little interaction there that feels a little odd. Cool. So that's the chariot there. Moving on, we've got the Tomb Scorpion, and I love the Tomb Scorpion. Tomb Scorpion is my best friend. So it's a move 7 Swift Stride unit. So already we're in great territory. It's a monstrous creature, so you get, you've got D3 stomp attacks on there, your closer order, Indomitable 1, magic resist 1, because you're a magical construct, so it makes sense. You've got Vanguard, so you're pretty happy to start these on the board, or if you don't want to, you can pay 5 points to give them ambushes. If you do, you can do your reserve shenanigans with the what's the rule called coming in from Beneath the Sands.
Beneath the Sands is the deep strike S.
They're decently beefy. They're only 3 wounds, but the T5, and they have got a 5-up save and a 6-up regen. Just a great little unit. And what about it is super scary in combat?
So it's 4 attacks. It's quite a lot for a kind of cheap little monster thing. It's only 70 points. But all of those attacks are strength 5, -2, killing blow, and monster slaying. So this thing, personally, I've never killed a dragon on one of these things, but I have made very much an opponent. I don't want to go near that. What happens if you roll that 6? I'm like, I most likely can't. Odds are against me, but there is that possibility that I one-shot your 600 point Chaos Lord that everyone seems to be afraid. So it's more once again a psychological. You put them on your flanks. It's like if you go down on my flanks, there's a chance I can kill you. Okay, I probably wouldn't be as scared about them if you're charging.
Oh, 100%. Because a dragon's going to eat this every day of the week.
But if I steal my regens, I've got my 6 out of my basket. I just need 1 wound. I don't care if I crumble, or I just need to get that 1/6, and it makes a lot of people scared.
You're not crumbling if you've done 9 wounds with a monster slayer. That's for sure. True. You're gonna win that combat.
But it's these things, kind of things, and it's 70 points.
Yeah,
I would probably most of the time put them in ambush just in case in the matchup if I want to try and get the +1, or I can place it there. It's so just good value. So like
it's so flexible as well though, because you don't have to.
It can go through like heavy infantry, it can go through monstrous infantry, it can go through other like baby monsters kind of thing, it can go through any monster, and it's something that semi can hold its own. You talked about the magic resist, that one little magic resist makes it for that dispel chance a lot better. It's just overall just for the points, so good.
It's incredible. You also have the option of making a strikes first poison attack, strength 5, no AP. You're almost never going to do it, but there will be the occasion where you charge
one wound dragon. You talk about stuff like that. Just try and pick it.
Yeah, I might even be tempted just to sit in it and be like, you're just going to whiff and I'm going to use my 4 attacks. But like something like where you're charged by light cavalry, for example, skirmishing light cavalry, say Dark Riders, which are going for like, oh, I've managed to shoot you down to a single wound. I'm going for it. It's like, okay, cool. You've got 4 models in base to base with me. I'm going to try and kill one of them. Now you've only got 3 models. That makes your odds much worse.
That T5 is really...
It's beefy.
It's good.
Yeah, just remember, base size is 75 by 50, not 50 by 75. So it's going to look really weird. You're sideways on, but
it's really hard to fit any base-to-base stuff because all the claws are always overhanging.
Yeah. Don't worry, you can't buy them, or you haven't been able to buy them for months. So you're probably using resin 3D printed ones. At which point, who knows if you'll get into combat? Who can say? So moving on, we've got the Necrolith Colossus, and this is a giant, but what if giant with killing blow?
Yes.
That's all I have to say about it. 160 points. It's got almost a dragon stat line, strength and toughness 6, wounds 5 instead of 6, less attacks, 4 attacks. It's got some stomp attacks. It is a behemoth. It's a 50 by 50 mil base. Yeah, it causes terror, timber, unstoppable assault. When it charges, each attack it makes that causes an unsaved wound makes an additional attack, and then they keep going, which is cool in theory. But when is a movement 6 model without Swift Stride make a charge in this meta? You tell me that.
It's not that. It's the 4 attacks, weapon skill 3.
Yeah.
Most of the time I'm getting 2 hits through. Yes, I'm strength 6. I could get 2 wounds through. If you save them though, it's just like, oh, okay, I don't get anything. It's a lot of points for it. Look, it's just the worst giant, because at least with the giant you've got that special table that could do something different.
Yeah,
and it could be really matched up. Whereas I've got 4 attacks. If the stomps counted for that unstoppable assault, maybe, but it specifically says
no, thank you. Absolutely not.
But
get out of here.
It's 4 attacks. You're hitting on 4s at probably best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not worth running, but it's a cool model.
It's a great model.
And it's a very fun narrative model. I think you have some fun moments when you run in and like, I killed 8 of my mates, Infernal Ironsworn or whatever. Good job, buddy. You had a great time.
Killing ogres, it's called that killing blow.
You could do that. That would be very funny. But yeah, so it's one of the models that exists. But don't worry, if you want big beasties with killing blow, there are better things. We can get to the... Oh, hey! It's a big beastie with killing blow! That's crazy. Didn't know this was here.
No.
Necrosphinx. So it is 35 points more, but you get a couple of things for that. So you've got weapon skill +1. You lose a point of strength, but don't worry about that. Your toughness 6, wound 6, so 2 additional wounds. Initiative 1, that's fine. You get an extra attack up to 5 attacks. Leadership 8 is great. You've got a fly 9, great already. I'm going to be marching that 18 inches. Fantastic stuff. Indomitable 2. It has a 5-up regen instead of a 6. It's got D3 +2 stomp attacks. It has Swift Stride. It has Terror. This thing is a budget dragon.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about what it can do in combat?
So one of the disabilities I've always forgot, you get Soul Reaper, you choose a character at the start, and you get reroll hits versus it. Usually doesn't really come up, but it could do, if you versus the dragon. So it has 2 attacks that it can do. So one is it's just normal attack, which you'll use your 5 attacks with. Strength 5, because it's usual thing. -1, killing blow. So it's that thing of you can hopefully clear off stuff. And then it has the one really cool attack that everyone seems to fight called Decapitating Strike. It is at strength 10.
Yep.
AP -4. It has Killing Blow, Monster Slayer, and Strike Last. So the whole point is you do all your other attacks, and then it gets one final thing. And what's great about it, it doesn't use up one of your attacks. It may make an additional attack. So you get 6 attacks with this guy. 1 at strength 10, -4, Killing Blow, Monster Slayer.
Just to be clear, because there was some confusion at the start of the edition, you don't get to make all of your attacks with this. This has been clarified now in an FAQ.
That would be very broken. That would be probably the brokenest thing in the game.
Yeah, hashtag YouTuber drama. Don't worry about that one. But so in this case, yeah, you take 1 attack with that. Everything else is still pretty good. You're still making, strength 5, AP1, killing blow attacks, which are pretty fine. You can still make 1 envenom sting, same as the Tomb Scorpion. That does use up one of your attacks if you want to. It's fine. And it costs points to take it, so you're not going to do that realistically. But yeah, that decapitating strike is really nice. So what is really good here is the combination of Soul Reaper, which is you get rerolls to hit against a nominated character, and then decapitating strike. Does that make a difference? No. But what it does is you say to your opponent, oh, that 600-point dragon. Yeah, I'm going to mark that. So if I get in combat with you, I get a reroll 1s to hit, and then I get a Monster Slayer attack into you at AP 4. Not that the AP matters for Monster Slayer, but, I could just one-shot you, and you watch as they have to try and internally rationalize, like, okay, this isn't actually a problem. I don't need to really care about this. I can probably just kill it before it gets to swing at me. But what if? And it'll make people play very differently. And also, I think it's just quite an efficient unit outside of that.
It's really tough for it as well. So it's the T6, really tough thing. 5-up save is, not too bad. But it's the 5-up regen. So we see most things with 6-up regen. It really does help. The stomps being D3 + 2 really does help. So on average, you're getting 4. That's strength 5 -2 because Behemoth.
Yep.
And you say about that decapitating strike being AP -4, strength 5. Once again, if someone's low wounds, that 1 wounds, I'm wounding you on 2, you're probably not getting an armor save, and it's on whatever else you've got left. So it can hurt other things rather than just being that I'm going to try and kill the dragon. It can get rid of those smaller smaller monsters.
You could do a near guaranteed wound to a steam tank every turn.
There we go.
In the future, in the future when Nuln rules the world,
we're all terrified of this.
Absolutely, yeah. If you didn't die to if you didn't die to the 6 cannons turn 1, this thing's gonna do a wound.
You'll be fine.
Yeah, of course. You just keep making all of those. So Necrosphinx, I really like it. I think it's genuinely really good. So let's scroll up here because I did skip them just to be in order a little bit more. We've got the Kemrian War Sphinx. This is technically a behemoth, but it's also got a howdah, so it's a chariot-ish. It is something you can put a character on the back of, but you probably don't, just on the basis of the next thing we're going to look at. You can still take them in your, is it special or rare? It's one of the two.
Special.
I've never checked because I've never wanted to run one. Cool model though.
It's a great model. It's so cool looking.
So it's, T6, it's 5 wounds that you add onto your character. So it's a T9, mount for your characters are basically, a 9 wound T6.
Say T9, I like that.
Yeah. 5-up save, which is fine. It has a number of Tomb Guard crew in there, just 2 of them. A couple of attacks with cavalry spears, which is fine. You can take 2 additional Tomb Guard at 10 points a model. I mean, sure, if you're doing it, why not? You can take the Strikes First, Envenom Sting, or a Strength 4 Breath Weapon, which is, again, fine. It has a howdah, so you have 360-degree line of sight. I don't think you can put a Lich Priest on this, can you?
No,
because
it's only the Tomb King.
Because if you could, I would.
Quite good that. So
you've got the howdah, the 360-degree line of sight. You don't fly, sure. Like the rules.
360 on a T6 monster that gives you 8 wounds. It would be phenomenal, but unfortunately, it's just the Tomb King.
It is, yeah. And that flat T6 as well is really nice, given that Lich Priests only get up to T5 on a dragon.
Yeah.
Alas, not something that you can do. So I'm probably not interested in running it, because I could just take the dragon. Any, like, compelling reason for this outside of...
So not really. So, like, maybe it's just you get kind of those more attacks with cleaving blow, but as we said, the dragon, it's probably up there as better. If we
Yeah.
compare it to the next nearest thing that's not a mount, the Necro Sphinx,
Yeah.
or if you, let's say, you pump up to the 4 Tomb Guards with the same points, like you're getting fly, you're getting 2 more stomps, you're getting regen 5, you're getting, as I say, monster slaying, you're getting killing blow on all your attacks. It's for me, it's just not the piece. It's a beautiful looking model and one of the best kind of, for me, Tomb King GW models. It's just it's not competitive in my opinion. Like, just because, as you say, the next thing we're going to look at is, well, you're going to put a Tomb King on. If the dragon didn't exist, yes, you would see this on most Tomb Kings, but the next thing we're going to look at,
if you could take like a prince or a royal herald on it, I think that would be interesting.
if
Again,
you could
like
put a royal herald on that, that'd be hilarious. That'd be so hard to get rid of. But yeah. But let's say a prince, a lower level, that would be quite a nice step up from a chariot. But
yeah, like sort of like the heavy chariot equivalent before you
Yeah.
get to the dragon. But yeah, so I don't see a huge amount of reason to be taking that. And then you've got the bone dragon. This is a cheap dragon. So if you're looking at like a chaos dragon or a dark elf dragon or anything like that, it's 280-ish points, 285 for a chaos dragon. The stats are worse. Let's be clear, the stats are worse. So you've still got the strength, you've got the toughness 6, you've got the bucket full of wounds. So this gets you up to a 9 wound lord or an 8 wound level 4. This is fine. Movement 6 is fine. Weapon skill 4 is quite low, honestly. You are only strength 6. A lot of dragons get up to strength 7, and that is actually quite impactful in the dragon v dragon matches. Initiative 2 is kind of whatever, and 5 attacks, so you lose an attack compared to the best dragons as well. But unlike the sort of mid-tier or mob budget high elf dragons, it does get you up to that T6, which is a really important breakpoint. What are you thinking on the bone dragon? Just walk me through.
I've loved it. It was so lovely to have something like that just as a model in the range. It's beautiful. It's such a great sculpt. But yeah, for what you get for it, it really makes a Tomb King quite scary. We've seen lists have double dragon, one with a Lich Priest, one with a Tomb King. You can even in Mortuary Cult go double 2 Lich Priests on it and go that kind of proper there. It brings something to the army that really helps, because you can get a good character on it that can actually go do that. And as you said, it gets it to the T6, it gets it to the 9 wounds. 5 attacks, yeah, it's not as many as the other dragons, but it does help. This is more of a, it's just good. And then say it's for 195 points. The Chaos Dragon is 285, so you're saving 90 points there. And there is an ability that you do get, which is not my start, is you get -1 to hit and shooting. So obviously stuff like those Iron Drakes, I'm always going to be talking about them because I always seem to play them. But those kind of things, it does hinder their kind of thing. And it does have Dry Dust, which is a bit annoying, but your Tomb King already has it, so it doesn't really affect it there. It's just, it's an Indomitable 2, it's a large target. It's really helpful for that Tomb King with that Fly 9. It's more movable, and I can get to Fly 12 with my Will Be Done, so I can get a fire, like further threat range of 21. So once again, in that kind of range off with other dragons, I can actually hit you from further away, potentially. So once again, it's kind of a mind game thing.
Yeah. So then it's got some other bits. The breath weapon's a little confused about what it wants to be. Strength 3, AP 2, multiple wounds 2. Multiple wounds is good on higher strength stuff. But strength 3, AP 2 is like, it's a pretty solid output, as we've seen from Pillar of Fire. Breath weapons aren't necessarily something you're seeing used a lot. I did use them quite a bit over the weekend, just gone. But it's something that I like more on the Lich Priest as opposed to the Tomb King, because you're more likely to be dancing around your opponent and trying to do some ranged output. As you said, Cloud of Dust is incredible. If you stack that with the Casket, you're going to be -2 to be shot, which is really strong. Makes it really hard for those Iron Drakes to pick you off. You are slower, but you're still Fly 9, so you're reasonably fast as a dragon goes. You've got the D6 stomp attacks, you've got the Swift Stride, you've got the Terror. It's just, for what you pay, very good. I would like there to be an upgraded version. If you could take like a Chaos Dragon equivalent, but Bone Dragon, I'd be paying for that. But also, I really like that it is a cheap model equivalent as well. So you can fit more stuff in and just make the Beta Lord a little bit less of your plan. And then, as we've talked about, you're going to be putting a Tomb King on there with the Armor of Ages. So they have to reroll all their successful wounds, which does kind of tip the scales a little bit more in the Bone Dragon's favor.
So you can get it. So if you max it out, I think it gets to about like 465 is the max points you can get for like a Tomb King, something like that, which is drastically lower than, as you say, like a Chaos Lord, which I can get to. I think it's like 2.
That's cheaper. That's cheaper than my Lord, my Dark Elf Dreadlord, who had a ward save, a great weapon, and a cloak.
Yeah. Whereas I will have a 5-up ward save, reroll wounds against me. I've got 5-up regen. I give them the biting blade because you have 20 points back. Sure. So I've got that AP -2, so I can start chewing through stuff like infantry. It's really good versus, but obviously other dragons, it can just hold up. And because I can't flee from you, if you win by, let's say, 2, cool. I don't lose any wins because I'm Indomitable and just go back 2 inches. You're probably going to follow up with me because it's my turn. We just keep this going. And as you say, your dragons loses wounds. There is a possibility I can regen mine. Because I say, all right, I put an extra wound on so I can keep him alive that way. And it's more that there's other things that can just buff it. So casket, the -1 hit. And hit weapon skill 7. So I'm weapon skill 7 versus you. You're hitting me on 5s if I have my casket up. So there are ways you can buff this dragon to really survivable.
And the last thing that is maybe not super obvious, that is a strong point for the Bone Dragon compared to the other dragons. It's on 100 by 150. There's a couple of good things here. So this is increases your command range pretty significantly. Yeah. You've got a big footprint, especially if you've got like a Lich Priest who's looking to do the entire Army of Reserve move. But if you're looking to charge, you can't be stopped by a column of crystal because you can see around it. Your opponent can obviously like stop you from charging some things, but a 60 by 100 mil base of a normal dragon can be completely blocked. The entire vision arc can be blocked by a column of crystal. Big brain stuff. Your mind's been blown. 100 by 150 mil, there's always going to be some gaps. So depending on how you position your dragon, you might be able to charge something no matter where your opponent puts that column.
That's just mind-boggling. I didn't even think, because I've never played versus someone who's chucked it out, but that is a massive thing. Because as you say, I've put down column of crystals in front of dragons, and I'm like, you can't charge anything, so I'm not going to deal with you this turn. That is a major kind of tech piece. Like, really helpful to have that bigger base size there. Yeah.
Obviously, you can still just be like, I block off vision to the unit that you would be able to charge. Yeah. But if you like just plonk the dragon down and like the entire arc of sight has units in, you're like, you're gonna struggle to really cut me off here, buddy. Yeah. Like, I'm gonna get you. All right. 2 last units: the Screaming Skull Catapult and the Casket of Souls, and these things are incredible. Take up your rare slots. If only you could take 2 of each. If only you had the points allocation to do that in rare. Spoilers. Talk about that next week. Do you want to start off with the catapult?
So the Screaming Skull Catapult, it's like any other stone thrower. It has all the same kind of shooting kind of requirements. It throws like stone thrower. It's 105 points, but you're always going to make 120 for the skulls of the foe special ability. T6, so it's a bit light on the toughness for that, and only 3 wounds. So I know some other War Machines could be a T7 with 3 or 4 wounds, so it can be really good. But once again, it's got regen, it's got Indomitable, it's a skirmisher as always. So the Screaming Skull itself, it fires like any other kind of trebuchet stone thrower, but it's got flaming and magical attack. So this is really handy versus certain things. It can come up, but it can also kind of hinder you potentially with stuff like stuff that gets 5-up wards versus flaming, etc. But the 2 special abilities that really make it worthwhile and why it's probably a little bit more expensive than, let's say, the Grudge Thrower. So Screaming Skulls. So this is what comes with it innately. So any unit that suffers a wound, okay, you don't have to kill a model, you just have to do a wound, suffers a panic test as if it has taken heavy casualties. So this is, if I throw it, let's say you're playing a bit cagey, if I throw it, I get a direct hit, I do a wound, you have to give a panic test. And with the Skulls of the Foes, the next ability, you are going to be at -1 leadership. So you're doing a panic test at -1 leadership. And if you fail, you'll most likely just fall back in good order. there's a good chance you could lose a whole unit and go backwards. I could potentially make you flee if you're below your 50% strength. It's just such a good piece that Richie was telling me all about when I played him. He goes, he was terrified by it, and I got very confused. And he goes, you can make one of my units run away. I was like, you're right, I can, because I make you do a panic test. So it's a really good defense piece there. And then say the skulls of the foe, wherever it lands, you roll 2d6 inches and you get a -1 modifier to leadership. And that is just really good for kind of Tomb Kings because of the next War Machine, the casket, that really kind of siphons off leadership debuffs.
So I see two ways to use this, and if you're taking the catapults, you're probably taking necromancy. You don't have to. They are just a nice piece to threaten, big stuff with, and stone throwers are solid in general. However, you can use this either before you use your caskets, or you can use it after on a different unit to the caskets, we'll say. Let's phrase it that way. So if you're using it before you use the caskets, you're like, I don't care how much I kill. All I want to do is get the Skulls of the Flow within 2d6 of you, which is almost impossible not to, because you're going to scatter, at maximum 10 inches, but from the center of the unit to the center of the template, and then you roll the 2d6, on average, you get a 7. Like, it's really unlikely that as long as you don't misfire, it's really unlikely that you don't get a -1 leadership on them. You combo that with the 2 spell to Necromancy for an additional -2 from the Hex and a -1 from the Aura, the Magical Vortex. You can get a unit at -4 to its leadership, and then you hit them with the Casket of Souls, make them take that leadership debuff. We'll talk about that more in a second, but that's really nasty. Or you can just be like, okay, I've debuffed them already. They're going to be taking a panic check at -4. Sucks to be them. They're probably running away, which is just valuable on its own. You can make it so that potentially 2 units run off the board turn 1 if your opponent mispositions, and that's really strong. And because it's a stone thrower, if you get a little bit lucky, you can do it out of line of sight as well. And there's more, there's less reliability inherent in that. But I really like Screaming Skull catapults. I think if you're running caskets, you probably run at least 1, and if you can, you run 2.
Yeah, so it's something I've changed in my list and talking to some other people with that Mortuary Cult. I'm pushing down more definitely that leadership debuff. So it's running 2 of those because you get 2 of the -1s, and it's just an overload of that. And as you say, even if, let's say, in combat, could it last until my start of next turn phase? So if I'm in a combat and 2 of them have landed there, you're at -2 to your leadership, and so it knocks down your leadership even further, so it can really affect you in obviously other phases. And as I say, that leadership buff stays up. It causes stuff for fear. It will still cause stuff for your other panic tests if they're caused from other shooting. It's just a really good piece.
Yeah. The other thing that's just like super worth talking about is it's great into all of the things in the meta and all of the things that might be actually quite good against you. Wood Elves, they scare me if I'm playing Tomb Kings. Multiple Pillars of Fire. Yes, I've got the anti-Pillar of Fire tech. That's great. But I need to be able to kill them. Otherwise, they're just going to do it again. They can kind of hide from you, but they can't hide forever. You can shoot your stone throwers out of line of sight. You can just put that little bit more pressure onto them. It's not always going to matter. But if you kill something, if you make something panic, there's some really strong combinations in there that you can force with the Screaming Skulls. Also, it's, dragons. Dragons are pretty terrifying. Tomb Kings don't like dragons, even though they have good answers to them in the casket. But the casket isn't necessarily going to finish off a dragon. I had this weekend. 1 casket almost killed me, but it didn't. If my opponent had 2 Screaming Skull catapults, I'd probably lose that dragon. Just finishing off those last 2 or 3 wounds is really nice. It's a really, really solid piece. Also, Bretonnians. If you're playing into Exiles Bretonnians, or let's say Empire, you can use it to try and kill their war machines. And there is a little bit of, who goes first in this matchup. And you can screen them with your dragon, and you can be cute in that way, because the cannonball stops when it hits a large target, which is very funny. But you can use it to make it so if you go first, or if your opponent whiffs, you can kill their bombards, and at that point, you've got the range pressure. They have to come to you, and you're at the advantage in that game.
Yeah, just brilliant. Love them.
Perfect. All right. So, La Piece de Resistance. This is, the thing that makes me excited about Tomb Kings, and not excited to play them. It's a war machine. It's only 135 points, which is frankly ludicrous for what it does. It's a T6 war machine, but 4 wounds this time. And then it's got, 4 wounds in combat as well. 4 attacks. Obviously, you do lose a wound, lose an attack every time you lose a wound in melee, because one of the Guardians has died or some such nonsense. A whole host of special rules. First of all, Cleaving Blow. Super excited for this to have Cleaving Blow. It's actually quite nice that they have great weapons in combat, because it's the sort of war machine you can't just charge with, let's say, Dark Riders and expect to win combat, as I was experiencing over the weekend. Covenant of Power. Any unit within 12 inches, any friendly Lich Priest gets +1 to cast. Also, all bound spells other than Cascade of Souls get +1 to cast. So Ruby Ring of Ruin is casting at +3, which is just quite tasty to have. This is friends or foe doing bound spells within 12 inches, but it's only friendly Lich Priest. So the best way around that could be you don't really want to give, any enemy casters +1 to cast. A movable object. It can't move in the remaining move subphase. That's a very specific wording. Do you want to explain why that might matter?
So a really good thing with the casket is it's still allowed to pivot to start with. Okay, so you're allowed to obviously play a bit janky depending on what base you have it on, where you can obviously pivot into a woods far away, and if you have the reserve move, because technically war machines can only pivot towards enemy in the remaining moves, but I'm just going to make a normal move and just move out that forest.
Yeah, and you're a skirmisher, so you can just move your full 4 inches if you want to.
Yeah, in any direction, and it's just really helpful of just that pop out, do what I want to do, hide away. So you can't charge me unless you're in that woods already, and at that point it doesn't really matter. I can spin constantly. It's just so cool and great. It's brilliant.
That's really funny. You can also, it's hard to outrange, because as we get onto the next page, in fact, let's just go to the next page. You can see the bound spells. 36-inch range is really good, but if you're playing against, let's say, a Mountain Pass opponent, you're playing on Mountain Pass, they can just outrange you, but not if you then just move 4 inches towards them every turn. They can't just sort of null deploy and take the 10-10. Eventually, you will catch them.
Yeah.
Quite nice there. So the rest of the special rules, we've had the Unbound Spirits. This is one that I see people getting wrong. It's if the crew is reduced to 0 wounds. So it only happens if it's in combat. If you die to shooting, you don't explode, which is good because you don't want your army to just get blown up on the back lines. If the crew is reduced to 0 wounds, roll a d6 for each unit within 12 inches. On a roll of a 4+, the unit suffers d6 strength 3 hits, no armor of regen allowed. Ward saves obviously are, and once they're resolved, they're removed from play. So pretty devastating and or tasty depending on the game state at the time.
It can be really strong, and I saw this in my own lines in the first game because I had everything at close. But something that is key, and I did play wrong, is that it's not magical attacks. It doesn't state anywhere that they're magical attacks. So with your Lich Priest, if you get Spectral Steed on them, they get Ethereal. This shouldn't hurt them. So I really misplayed that because I lost my Hierophant because of that, because I was a Muppet and completely forgot it until basically this week. But yeah, it's something like that, and it can hurt your enemies. It's all right. Yes, it's only strength 3, but it's the no armor or regen. It's really anti-Tomb Kings because obviously we only have usually armor and regens, so it does really hurt there. But it's on a 4+, and as you say correctly, it's only in the combat phase, rather than if it gets popped by, like, say, a cannon or another catapult, it doesn't go off.
Which is good, because it's a huge aura, and you probably want to be bunched up around it, because you've got a couple of different bound spells you can cast. Now, we'll start off with the Light of Protection, because that is objectively the better one. There are times the Light of Death is going to be absolutely amazing, but a lot of the time you're just going to cast Light of Protection and not cast anything else, because it's important to note that if you cast the Magic Missile while you've got the Light of Protection up, the Light of Protection immediately just falls off. So this is a Remains in Play, which is it's strong in some ways, it's downside in others.
I'd rather if it was until the next turn.
Me too.
On the turn that you really want to defend yourself and you keep it up, it's only an 8+. If they're wizards in range, they need a 5 on 2 dice. It's just one of those where it's great if it's up. Trust me, it's brilliant what you get from it, but it just
means that you've got to play your zone of control so that if they get close to you, they are really punished for it. That's got to be how they go. So Remains in Play. While in play, this model and any friendly unit within 18 inches gains a 6-up ward against any wound suffered And in addition, enemy units suffer a -1 modifier to any rolls to hit made against this model and any friendly unit within 18 inches. That's just really strong.
Yeah.
For a while they stacked, and I'm glad they don't anymore, because
No.
that was some bullshit.
I've never played them as stacking because I
No.
just knew it wasn't going to be the right thing. But that -1 to hit, the 6-up ward is pretty and nice, but it's that -1 to hit that really helps. So, like,
Yeah.
for me, my Ushabti, that weapon skill 4, other things that are weapon skill 4 hit me on 5s. It can really stop them. So, like, versus Pegs Knights, that you can get them hitting you on 5. And it's like, I'm not that afraid against you because I've got it up.
Yeah. It's basically 2 layers of protection,
Yeah.
if we're being honest. Like, let's say you're putting it on your Ushabti or just general infantry. You're going from having an armor save and a ward, an armor save and a regen, to having -1 to be hit, and then an armor save, and then a ward save, and then a regen.
regen.
And yes, it's, you know, it's a 6-up and it's a -1 to hit, which are both, you know, not the biggest impact on their own, but it's just extra layers of bullshit that you've got to churn through. Yeah, it's really, really strong. And you should probably try and keep this up on at least one of them all of the time, unless your opponent full sends a dragon. You're like, oh, I've got 1 turn to kill this. I guess I've got to just nuke it and then suffer the consequences. So that's pretty good. But then they've got a bound spell that is good at killing dragons. Do you want to talk us through the Light of Death?
So the Light of Death, it's a magic missile. As I said, we're skirmishers, so we get 360 line of sight, which is great.
Yeah.
36-inch range. That's the kind of sweet spot. Because most deployments, bar obviously Mountain Pass, most things are going to be within 36 from deployment. Or they're really probably hiding. The enemy unit must take a leadership test if it goes off. So this is where the idea of stacking those debuffs. So my current list at the moment is 3 Necromancy Wizards, 2 Screaming Skulls. So there's a possibility I can get
3 Necromancy Wizards.
A -5 Aura, and then actually you can make it up to -7, and they have to do a leadership test. If they pass it, it's a bit sad. It's D3 strength 3 hits with AP -1. Like, it could kill 1 or 2 guys. It's not the best, but it's if they fail it. So this is why you really want to go down that leadership debuff thing. It's suffers D6 plus 3 strength 6 hits with multi wounds too, and with no armor or regen. So the big kind of saves, so like use your arm saves, they're like 2+ kind of thing, really big there. Where wards tend to be more pushing on that 5-up, with a few cases being that 4-up, and it's like multi wounds too. And I have many a time. We got very lucky with the Tomb King's dice, rolling a 6, so I get 9 of them. I'm strength 6, so we're looking for 4s, and it can, as we said, just one-shot dragons. Like, if it's a last-ditch attempt, go for it. It can really hammer it. If you get all those negative debuffs there, and there's a big thing is, obviously, if we cast this, we don't get life protection. But if there's a turn where you're not charging me, you can't really shoot me, I'm going to fire it anyway, just to see. Even if you don't have any leadership buffs, they fail that 10-up or 9-up leadership, you can snipe them from miles away. Certain armies, such as like orcs and goblins, like their big kind of ball unit, you can just annihilate them with just that. Because their leadership's already low. A spirit vortex or a spirit leech, and it's going to go through areas. It can one-shot everything. I've killed a unit of Grail Knights, and I think a Baron was in it, and just one-shot it straight off the board. It's like, oh, because they only get their 5-up wards.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. And I was like, that's like, it was like 500 something points, 600 points. And I was like, this is 135. Just killed you, mate.
Yeah. So just to give an example, on average dice, if you've got, for example, an opponent who's brought a Wyvern, like an Orc boss on Wyvern or a Black Orc boss on Wyvern, that hasn't taken a Talisman of Protection, perhaps you're playing Nomadic War, or if you've got a second Wyvern, something like that, on average it dies. Average dice, it dies. That's spicy.
And it's
From
just
one magic missile that's cast on a 4 on the dice.
Yeah, and realistically, if you're going for more of a using it as combat rather than just preventative, you've got 2 of them. It's really amazing if it gets off. So that's why I'm trying to get as much of the negative leadership as an aura, and then I can just try and snipe kind of stuff.
I think for me, I like one 1 to 2, if you're being really spicy, take a second Necromancy Caster, and then Illusion. Obviously, they've got Mind Razor in there as well. Mind
Yeah,
Razor pairs really well with the Necromancy leadership debuffing and the Scrimmy Skulls, but then also you've got all of the utility tools in there, the Miasmic Mirage. Because sometimes you don't kill the dragon and you've just lost your debuff. So just being like, oh, well, guess I'm going to put down a column of crystal and I get another chance to kill this man, which is, something really, really good there. So that is now the end of the units that we have got to talk about. That is the entirety of the Grand Army. As I said, next week we are going to talk about all of the Arcane Journal in depth. But I hope you enjoyed that. How are you feeling about Tomb Kings running through that? Any new little pieces that you've picked up that you might want to put in some lists? Anything that you've gone, oh, actually, that's quite spicy?
So, Carrion, I noticed we talked about it just because how what you've just said them to me, that okay, I'm challenged out a big dragon on my big block. They come in the side just so if I win that comment they fail, I can close them down. That seems quite nice. Talking about how those Tomb King dragons can actually get through a column of crystal, I didn't realise that. I always just presumed column of crystal stops the dragon because I think that's how most of us are feeling. But as I said, I think the real proper way of playing them is what we're going to find out next time with the Mortuary Cult and go down that either proper magic route or the proper kind of monster mash kind of thing.
Yeah, like one Arcane Journal with legitimately 2 very strong ways of playing it, which is quite interesting. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining me.